the fire started in the early hours of Sunday morning and is still active. In Gauteng, newly appointed Mayor of Ekurhuleni Nkosi Ndiphile Xakasa says plans are being put in place to develop better roads and infrastructure across the city. Xakasa was speaking during his maiden State of the City address in Germiston, east of Johannesburg. Earlier this month, Xakasa was nominated unopposed as the new mayor of the city during an extraordinary council meeting. This after former Mayor Sivuyile Ngodwana was removed through a motion of no confidence. Xakasa says new roads and infrastructure are crucial in enhancing economic development in the city.
It is evident from our interaction with communities that the state of our roads and stormwater infrastructure in general needs urgent attention. Majority of comments and inputs are centered around the construction of new roads, sidewalks, new stormwater drainage system, pedestrian bridges and speed humps. But this is for both urban townships, including informal settlements. We also acknowledge the proper roads and stormwater is not only critical to enhance economic development, but to simplify mobility and interconnectedness within our residential areas.
Lastly, dozens of anti-war student protesters at Columbia University in New York in the U.S. have barricaded themselves in an academic building. Reports suggest that soon after midnight, they broke into and barricaded themselves inside Hamilton Hall after smashing through a locked door and later unfurled a banner reading Heinz Hall after a 6-year-old Palestinian named Hein Rajab was killed by the Israeli military in January. Sharon Bryce-Peace reports.
This latest escalation came after weeks of protest on the famed city campus, including a Gaza Solidarity tent encampment that has been the focus of the student resistance that's demanded the university disclose its investments and disinvest in funds and businesses viewed as profiting or aiding Israel's war in Gaza. The university had earlier started suspending students after offering them a reprieve if they left voluntarily, a deadline that came and passed Monday.
Recapping the top story this hour, the Constitutional Court has granted the application for the Council for the Advancement of the Constitution, CASIC, to be admitted as a friend of the court in the Zuma and the Electoral Court matter. Headlines at 3:30 for SAFM News. I'm Dinomo Daung.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Themba Bavuma dropped as South Africa named squad for T20 World Cup, and TS Galaxy threatened legal action against Mamelodi Sundowns coach Rulani Mokwena. I'll have more on this and other sports stories at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Join us on Afternoon Express Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3 as we celebrate Workers' Day. Tato Mambalani shares how to assert yourself at work without being arrogant, and Amy Kleinhans lets us in on how to beat a bad day at the office. And we're making peanut butter balls for that 3 p.m. brain fog. That's Afternoon Express Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m. only on S3.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM, leading the conversation. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, we know that tomorrow, May 1st, is Workers' Day. And for many people, it links totally to jobs. I know there's a bigger issue about unions, but I'm not talking about that now. For many people, it's about jobs. And it got me thinking about the amount of people who are in jobs primarily for the money. So you get people who are in jobs for the money, then you get others who are in jobs they truly enjoy, and they've been able to develop a skill set where there's a high degree of competence in their workplace, which is just great. Okay, but many others really struggle. And here's the thing to move beyond that. If you ask the people that have succeeded, across the world, the single biggest factor in their success has been the ability to find purpose in life. Like, what is your purpose? So if you find your purpose, you find a calling that actually drives you, right? And let me be clear, your job is not your purpose. Ideally, your job must be aligned to your purpose. That's what it should be. But the job is not your purpose. The purpose is something so much bigger that it gives you the sense of drive and exhilaration to rush out of bed to say, hold it, I've got a mission to accomplish. And experts also believe that in the South African context, therefore, right, of all the efforts we put into trying to get education right, one thing that's missing is getting younger people, from as young as possible to even the older people at college and varsity level, to understand purpose. So there's very little attention put to finding purpose. And the sense is, if they find their purpose, you don't have to motivate them because they'll know exactly where they need to be going in their lives, okay? So the big question to you is like, okay, so how then do you find your purpose? Well, maybe that's a difficult one, but the reality is each one's purpose is very different. But the way you would find it really is find out, ask yourself questions. What is it that doesn't keep you awake at night? No. But what is it that gets you out of bed ASAP because you have a mission to accomplish? What is it that you would most regret not doing at the end of your life? That inadvertently would lead back to your purpose. And here's the thing. If you find your purpose and you align your job to your purpose, you will find that you will achieve so much, okay? So that's my thought for today. And if I look at it right now in terms of where I am, perhaps you can ask me this question. Okay, so Ashraf, what's your purpose? Well, my purpose is this. I champion people. Every person I meet up, every touch point that I have, I try and create a sense of building that person up from where they are to something bigger. So I champion people. But the big question to you is, I have my purpose. What's yours? I'm Ashraf Garda, and that's my point.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, the apartheid government was so afraid of Beyers Naudé that for 7 years it banned him from being in a room with more than one other person. But in 1994, he voted in the country's first democratic election and worked hard to help previously disenfranchised people do the very same. So on May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's #RememberMe initiative encourages South Africans to honour the memory of Beyers Naudé by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, lots we're going to talk about. Welcome to the show, The National Pulse. In fact, amazingly, it's 1 month today. If we're looking at the end of the month since I've been hosting this 3 to 6 slot, and I've really enjoyed it. It has certainly energized me and hopefully energized the whole team, but certainly I hope that it's energized you to be very conscious of your pulse rate, the national pulse, your personal pulse, and where you are and what gets you fired up every single day of the week. And I'd like to think that we've reflected on the issues that have got you fired up all throughout the week. Right now, as per the conversation I had around what's your purpose? Well, tell me what's your purpose. I want to know. Because if you don't find your purpose, you're simply in a job. What's your purpose? You can WhatsApp in text or voice note form 0614 104 107. Otherwise, you can also call in. In fact, I'll give you that call-in number in a moment. By the way, you can tweet to us. So on the X platform, just use the hashtag #TheNationalPulse. And you can certainly tag me as well, Ashraf Garda. Well, talking about purpose and mission, there's a really important issue that we thought we'll speak to one of the leaders of the African Transformation Movement about, and that's Mr. Vuyo Zangula. Good chatting to you, and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much. Greetings to you and everyone listening.
Thank you. Now, in the build-up to the election, different parties have different manifestos, different plans, different visions about where they want to see South Africa beyond May the 29th. And one of the factors around your movement, the ATM, is being very clear on bringing back the death penalty. So we thought we want to pick your brains on just that. So tell us about it. What's your understanding in terms of the why would you like to bring the death penalty back?
I think the most important aspect in this discussion, it is to reiterate that a law or a constitution must be must be based on the will of the people. Now, the reality is when the death penalty was abolished in 1995, which is after in fact, in 1995, which is in the first 1 or 2 years of the democracy that we have in our country, there was a public outcry, meaning people did not want the death penalty to be abolished. Therefore, the fact that we do not have a death penalty now goes against the wishes of the people. That's the first issue. The second issue is that there is so much preoccupation about the right to life of criminals, people who do not respect and honor the right to life of innocent people. So our point of departure as the ATM is to say we want to have a country whereby it is the will of the people that reigns supreme. The law, the constitution must be based on the will of the people. Whether a few powerful people in the country agree or do not agree, that is a non-issue. What we want, it is to have a system whereby it is the people that are basically directing the governance of our country. And on this point, we had submitted in 2019 a letter to the president of the country requesting that there needs to be a referendum so that the people can decide officially whether they do not want or they want the death penalty. So that is why we as ATM, we keep on emphasizing that, because the death penalty, in our view, is a proper retribution for people who do not respect the right to life of others. One would even argue that there is a death penalty in our country because if 85 people are murdered on a daily basis by courtless, heartless criminals, there is a death penalty, but it's a death penalty for innocent people. What we are merely advocating for is to have a death penalty to punish the people, which is the criminals that are killing innocent people.
All right, let's take it one step at a time, right? You said in 1994 there was a public outcry. I mean, I must concede, I can't remember the public outcry, and I was certainly old enough to understand it. I don't think there was a public outcry.
There was, if you were even to read a report that was issued by the Institute of Race Relations, when they speak about the public opinion on the death penalty, they will, in that report, they do state that when it was abolished in 1995, the public opinion that was there, it was overwhelmingly in favor of retaining the death penalty. So that is what informs, a lot of people saying that the manner in which we have in terms of the laws that regulate the conduct of our country, it is not laws that are based on the will of the people. That is why when the death penalty was abolished, people were not in agreement with that particular decision because it was a decision of the court, a court that is basing that on a constitution. However, that constitution was not a constitution that came about through the consultation of the citizens of the country, from your traditional leaders, religious leaders, community leaders, and communities in its entirety. It's a constitution that came about by people who imposed themselves to be representatives of the people. And that is why there is so much discord between what they wanted in terms of our law and what the people want.
Okay, so just stay with that point. I mean, you talk about the people were not happy. So where you may be right, if the courts decided that and then enshrined that in the Constitution, and you're right, they didn't have a referendum on it, okay? Then, but by the same token, when we say the people were opposing it, we also can't say all the people. So if all the people didn't agree with the court decision or the Constitution, we also can't say all the people agree that the death penalty must remain. We don't really know that, right? Until we actually have a referendum.
Indeed. That is why we, as the ATM in 2019, we said let there be a referendum so that the people decide. And what we want to really emphasize in this point as a ATM, we've spoken at length at how the death penalty in Botswana is seemingly working well for the people in Botswana, and how in Malawi there's a death penalty for each and every criminal who decides to kill a person living with albinism. And that has led to a reduction in the killing of the people with albinism. We're equally saying that in our country, when you have more than 85 people that are murdered on a daily basis, and that number keeps on increasing, there needs to be a strong punishment when it comes to dealing with some of these crimes. However, let it be through a formal referendum, so that it is the voice of the people that reigns supreme, not the voice of the powerful in our country, including judges of the Constitutional Court, because in our view, what we want as a party is that for the people to decide their fate and not hand over to a few judges or politicians to decide on their behalf.
Well, look, to be fair, many people may agree with you to say let the people decide on that. Now, at this point in time, it's unconstitutional, so it would require a referendum. And if the referendum passes through, then it would require a constitutional change, which would require, beyond a 2/3 majority. I mean, that's very complicated down the line. But let's stay with the reality. You know that the death penalty was abolished because of what South Africa saw, democratic South Africa, was the fact that it was inhumane, and far too many people were being killed in apartheid South Africa, who effectively were simply killed because they opposed apartheid. And there were other factors beyond that. So they were not hardened criminals who were killed. They were activists who were killed. And this was a safeguard against that. Do you not see that point?
Yeah, that is why our language as the ATM, we are saying that we want to introduce a justice-based capital punishment system, which is a system that is taking into account where we are now as a country, not to reintroduce the type of death penalty which was imposed during the times of apartheid, which was racial in nature or racist in nature. We want to have a capital punishment system whereby we send a very strong message that criminals who do not respect the right to life of other people will not be given a free pass. And most importantly, we won't have a culture in our country whereby there is seemingly a reward for people who are taking the life of other people. And we just need to emphasize again that the fact that there is a system that was used during the times of apartheid incorrectly or wrongly, or that was inhumane, that does not mean that you cannot change the wrongs of the past and design your own system that is suiting the needs of the people as in 2024.
Okay, here's the last thing, and we've got like 30 seconds to answer this, right? To do anything about it, you need support. You're going into an election. There's nothing that suggests that the masses support you. The numbers don't suggest that. And you've got 30 seconds.
There's nothing that shows that the people do not support us. That is why on this issue we've been calling for a referendum so that the people decide.
No, I'm saying there's nothing that says that people support you. I mean, the polls don't suggest you have massive support.
The party or the position?
Well, it's linked to to vote for the party, you'd link to their position and vice versa.
No, not entirely. There are people who would rather vote for other parties. People are moved by different things when it comes to voting. Now, if people on the top of their head, for example, safety is their issue, obviously the death penalty will be their top priority.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, right? Thank you for your time. You certainly got us thinking about that, whether people would actually vote for the ATM because of their position on the death penalty. More to come in a moment.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one Outsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone Outsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tygerberg, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called Outsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The debate of universities will be witnessed on the field of play. The varsity derby between Amatax ladies and UJ ladies. Who are the most intelligent students? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria ladies versus University of Johannesburg ladies on Sunday 5 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Does a company have to have a legal reason to test your blood or test whether you're intoxicated in the first place? It can't just be because we want to. They actually have to have a rational reason for that. Would that be right?
Absolutely. It's for operational reasons. For example, in mines, they have this random check-in. Simply because of the risk that people pose when they come into the workplace if they have been intoxicated. In this particular case, this is a woman that consumed dacha or cannabis for medicinal purposes, not recreational purposes. It all depends on context. So therefore, I would be very careful in thinking that this is carte blanche license for people to smoke a joint the night before in order for them to get away with this.
Sabir Ahmed Jashpipe, thank you, an expert on labour law.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, if you have an opinion on the ATM's push for a referendum on the death penalty, well, you let me know. You can call in as well, 086 000 2032. You have that, 086 000 2032. You can also text or voice note us via WhatsApp, 0614 104 107. If you have a view on purpose, and purpose being the singular most important thing that you need in discovering yourself, that will then pave the way for everything else to hopefully fall into place. So what's your take on purpose? You can tell me. Well, what's your take about Zimbabwe on the one hand and Kenya on the other? And I say that because of our next story on the Global Watch, right? So the Kenyan President William Ruto has revealed that his country has secured Zimbabwe's support for Raila Odinga's bid for the African Union Commission's chairmanship. In return, and this is the interesting part, Kenya will support Zimbabwe's bid for readmission into the Commonwealth and then help them fight sanctions. So let's try and understand all of this. Lennon Indebele is with me, head of News 24's Africa desk. Lennon, good chatting to you as always. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you too.
Thank you. Right, what help us understand the significance of, let's call it this agreement that's been made.
Well, it's pretty much straightforward. William Ruto, the Kenyan president, was invited to Zimbabwe to open the international trade fair, and he also took it upon himself to use the opportunity to rally behind his former rival in elections back home, Raila Odinga, for the top job of the AU Commission. Because when it comes to Kenya and the AU and these international things, they go big on them. Because when Faki Mahamat came in from Chad, he beat Amina Mohammed Jibril, a Kenyan diplomat for that top job. So they still really want this job, because when they are on top of things, they feel like they can deal with violent extremism, these coups that are coming up, and there's the African threat pact that is being talked about a lot. So Kenya, it feels like they can play a big part at this level. So talking to Zimbabwe for their vote is quite important, because at times these people vote according to their colonial backgrounds, like say, for example, language barrier. You've got the Francophone Africa and you've got the English-speaking Africa, and when they go there, they vote along those lines in most cases.
Okay. I mean, interesting coming out of this. I would have thought that let's call it the bargain that's been put in place about, if you support us regarding Raila Odinga, we will support your readmission into the Commonwealth, and then fight sanctions. I would have thought that Zimbabwe would seek Kenya's support on that anyway. I mean, on a far more principled ground than simply you vote for our man and we will support your country.
Well, if you look at it, the anti-sanctions push for Zimbabwe is an AU program already. Everyone in the AU is speaking about anti-sanctions, and Zimbabwe wants to get back into the Commonwealth, but it's not really up to Kenya for Zimbabwe's return. But the solidarity part is what matters, because to be quite frank, these two countries don't have much of relations to talk about, So when they meet at this thing, this is what could come out of it. There's no other thing. They signed like 6 bilateral trade pacts, but no one really follow up these things. They are for the binational commission a day before these presidents met, but really no one really looks at these things going forward. So basically, the Commonwealth, the sanctions, that's the chorus that everyone would go with.
Okay, so I'm trying to imagine this. Raila Odinga, chairman of the African Union Commission. How much of clout does that chairperson have? Seriously.
Well, chairing the commission in the past used to be for, in courts, small African nations. Remember, this thing changed when Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma came in. I think it was 2012 when she took over the thing. So basically that thing of saying we're leaving it to smaller nations on the continent stopped, and now they rotated East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa, and so on. But the commission chair is in charge of running of the AU, basically. He's the one. He's a quasi head of.
I understand that, but what I'm saying, I understand that, and we're on to news time. So what's in it for Kenya, for example? I mean, I know what's in it for the continent, but how does that change Kenya and Kenya's own challenges by having a Kenyan as the chairperson?
Well, my thinking is removing Odinga from domestic politics, neutralizing him could give Ruto time to maneuver back home. Remember, Odinga once worked for the AU. There was a job created for him after the disputed elections against Kenyatta. He was given some post, but after he left, no one filled that post. So I feel like it's more of a political wilderness for Odinga.
Right. That's a whole different That's a different conversation. It's not even a promotion. It's actually shifting him sideways into what seemingly is a promotion, but in fact it is into the political wilderness. Let's leave it at that, because it's certainly got us all thinking about that. Appreciate your time, Lennon Ndebele, head of News 24's Africa Desk, about that potential deal where Zimbabwe will support the Kenyans for Raila Odinga's bid for the African Union Commission chairmanship. In return for that, Kenya will support the reinstatement of Zimbabwe into the Commonwealth, as well as sanctions, so removing of sanctions, that is. You make of that what you will. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Deneo Mataung.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 3:30. The SABC has denied reports that its group executive for news and current affairs, Moshweshwe Monare, is being pressured to undergo a second vetting process. In other news, the Constitutional Court has granted the application for the Council for the Advancement of the Constitution, or CASEC, to be admitted as a friend of the court in the Zuma and the Electoral Court matter. And the late Dr. Motsoku Pheko has been remembered as a man man who championed for the progression of women. The anti-apartheid activist, academic, historian and lawyer was being remembered at a memorial service at UNISA in Pretoria. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Woodmead has a crash at Beklu interchange. The N3 southbound in Germiston has a truck crash at Geldnes interchange. The N1 southbound in Diepkloof has a crash just before the Rancho Road exit. Vitkoppen Road westbound in Fourways has a crash reported at Leslie Drive, and Linwood Road in Pretoria is where a burst water main is reported at Robedia Street, so you're asked to expect delays. In KZN, the N3 in Peaceville has been reopened between the M13 Keyridge interchange and Hammersdale exit after earlier blasting works. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck reported just before Mlaas Road, causing delays. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards Krombum Road. Kloofnik Road outbound is slow moving, that's through Tamboerskloof, and Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
So Tumi is wearing a cricket top, which does suggest either the national team is playing tonight or some players will be playing for the national team. Either way, you better tell us why.
Well, some players will definitely be playing for the national team. A very good afternoon to you. And as Ashraf did say, we start things off with cricket. Andrich Nortje will make his international comeback after a 9-month absence at the 2024 T20 World Cup. Nortje, who has been in action at the IPL, has been named in South Africa's 15-player squad that will be led by Aiden Markram. Opening batter Ryan Rickleton and Seema Otniel Bartman, both standout performers at this year's SA20, have also earned call-ups and could earn their first T20 caps. The T20 World Cup could also see it being de Kock's last international appearance. But in terms of some of those notable exclusions, it includes former captain Themba Bavuma, Riley Rousseau and Wayne Parnell. Still staying with cricket, New Zealand cricket says that it will go ahead with a test match against Afghanistan in September. This is just a month after Australia scrapped a T20 series against the same opponents. Cricket Australia postponed a 3-match series due to take place in August at a neutral venue, saying that the situation for women in the Taliban-ruled country was deteriorating. However, New Zealand said that they will play a one-off test against Afghanistan at a venue yet to be decided. They will also face Afghanistan in their opening T20 World Cup match in the West Indies in June. Moving on to football, politics of football. Tears Galaxy have threatened to take legal action against Mamelodi Sundowns coach Rulani Mokoena over claims that he made after his side's 3-0 win yesterday. In the post-match, Mokoena alluded that Bongani Zungu's injured suffered at the hands of Oributse Mungai was not a coincidence and allegedly premeditated by Galaxy coach Sid Ramovic. And in case you missed it, this is what Rulani said.
Disappointed with the tackle on Bongani Zungu. I'm very disappointed because I was told already last night that the coach of the opposition showed that tackle that Bongani Zungu made on Bernard Park and showed it to the players and said, don't forget what Bongani Zungu did. And I'm very disappointed because, you know.
Yeah, so those are the claims. But now TS Galaxy has released a statement urging Mokoena to prove his claims or run the risk of facing legal action. And just after the match, this is what TS Galaxy coach Sid Ramovic said regarding the matter. Right, it seems like we're struggling technically. Oh, we found the clip.
I didn't see the thing either. I have to see it, but I think that ironically he's the player that injured Parker, yes, but I can be sure that no one from our team will do anything on purpose. So I heard from Supersport that Mr. Sunshine say that maybe we should, or we did it on purpose to do something. I think to say something like this is very, very low. And I didn't want to comment about it because I learned from the past that if a person advertises his ignorance, you don't have to do actually so much. You just let him talk, and this is what I will do. But
well, there you have it. It seems like Ramovich and Mokoena are at each other's throats yet again. Will it ever stop?
Is that the norm?
Literally, they're always fighting. They're always fighting. So I wonder where this fight is going to end. Elsewhere, the United States and Mexico have withdrawn their joint bid to host the 2027 Women's World Cup and instead focus on bidding for the tournament in 2031. It comes less than 3 weeks before the hosts were to be chosen at a FIFA Congress in Bangkok on the 17th of May. The remaining bids are from Brazil and a joint one from Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. And then rounding things up with women in sports, some good news for female cricketers in Australia. Now the average female domestic player salary for the 2024-25 season, inclusive of the Women's Big Bash League contract payments, will jump to around 1.9 million rand. And now the Women's Big Bash League will become a 40-match competition with the games again set to be staged at venues including the SCG, Adelaide Oval, as Cricket Australia maintains its push for the women's game into major stadiums. And of course, this is great news because we have some South African-born players that are also playing in the Women's Big Bash, including the Proteas captain Laura Falvard and Marizanne Kapp. So great news for them that now their salary is going up.
So they're making some big money. Good for them.
They're going to make a lot of money.
Tell me, you have any thoughts on these tournaments that are being shared by multiple countries? You know, like now you mentioned the Women's World Cup,
yes.
Like 2-3 countries will do it. Then you mentioned Belgium and something else, right? But I mean, even the next Men's World Cup will be, I think, USA, Canada, Mexico. That was something that was never the issue before, but it seems to be the norm.
In terms of countries sharing tournaments.
Hosting a tournament.
Co-hosting.
Yeah,
I think it's great because sometimes perhaps the financial burden is too much for one country to host it alone. So perhaps doing it together is just a little bit messy in terms of the matches because some need to be hosted there. If you want to go to the other one, then you have to go all the way to the other country. But I think in terms of countries hosting one tournament or co-hosting a tournament, they help each other in terms of financially.
They do. It does mess up the branding of the tournament. Like when you got South Africa, it's South Africa. Yeah. It does mess up. And perhaps it's just another important point that you made, that maybe they just don't make as much money as they claim they'll make. That's why they're splitting the risk really more than anything else. Okay, we'll chat in an hour.
Yeah, I'll be back in the next hour.
Half an hour, yeah.
For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapel.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
So here's a question. Are you over 60 years old? And if the answer to that is no, then, well, you can pause. But if you are over 60, did you get a message that told you that you've been given special permission to vote on the 27th and the 28th of May? That's 2 days before the elections because of the fact that you're older. Well, if that's the case, the story is, I'm sorry to say, I believe it's not true. So let's find out exactly what the position is with Mr. Maseko Shiburi, who's the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. And the IEC will tell us more about it. Maseko, good chatting to you. You're on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Right, so above 60, can they vote on the 27th, 28th? Yes, no?
No, it's not a general rule. The special votes are for people who, because they have a physical condition, are unable to go to a voting station on the 29th. Those, if you approve the application, we visit at home. The other category are persons who are unavoidably away from their voting station on voting day. Those qualify for special votes. But we do not think that category of people over 60 are basket cases that require special accommodation.
That means in both examples you've just given me, they are not restricted to age. They could be for all age groups.
They could be all age groups. The only qualification is that a person is away from their voting district or a person has a physical condition, infirmity, disability, and for that reason, they are unable to attend physically to a voting station on the 29th.
In that case, you would actually, you as in the IC, would actually go to them the day or two before. You'd actually go to their home?
In that case, we will go to their home so that we affirm their dignity and they can vote in conditions of relative dignity without being transported to voting stations in wheelbarrows sometimes.
Okay, so the story has been going through the rounds, and nowadays they spread like wildfire. Okay, where did that come about? That anybody above 60 automatically can vote on the 27th and 28th?
It is not an automatic to vote by special vote. You must still apply, and if approved, you can vote then on the 27th and on the 26th. It will be a pity that people who do not have a physical condition or are at their voting stations crowd out those persons who otherwise would not be able to vote, but for a special vote dispensation.
All right. And the misinformation that we've all heard, that in fact it's open to anybody above 60 can vote the day and 2 days before, where did that come about? I mean, the fact that it's so widespread, so many people are talking about it now.
We do not know where it comes from, and the message purports that the author has permission from the Commission. It is not true. We have not made such arrangement, because to make such arrangement will be acting outside of the four corners of the law. The law requires that the person must have a physical condition or that they must be away from their voting district on voting day.
Okay, naturally there'll be lots of ifs, whats and buts and maybes between now and May 29. A contact number or an address I can direct people to if they want to, or website maybe if they're uncertain about certain issues?
Elections.org.za, and special votes are still open until the 3rd of May. People who will be away from their voting districts or working on voting day, they have until the 17th to apply or to give us pre-notification of their intention to vote outside of their voting district and indicate the voting station at which they wish us to make accommodation for them.
And is there a call center number besides the website?
The call center number will be on our website, elections.org.za.
Okay, but I mean, do you know the number offhand? Because some people don't have internet access,
Yes, can I give it to you off air as well?
Okay.
I don't know it is embarrassing.
That's fine. No, that's fine. Well, I mean, give it us off air, but also maybe get the IC to tweet it out too. If you can just tweet it out and just tag SFM Radio and myself using the hashtag The National Pulse, we'll pick it up and share that to the audience that uses social media. Let's just make that point. Thank you for your time. Thanks for clearing that up, Maseko Shiburi. Much appreciated. And he is the deputy.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.9 FM in Port Shepstone.
Right, we chatted about purpose earlier on and what is your purpose, and if you would like to share what your purpose is and how you discovered your purpose, then I'd like to know. We've also spoken about the death penalty as per the push from the African Transformation Movement. There's a lot of people want to talk about it and sending WhatsApp voice notes. We'll play them as soon as we can. You can also comment in text form on the WhatsApp group, on our WhatsApp platform, but also, on social media, on Facebook, as well as on the SFM Radio Twitter account. Just find that, on the X platform, right? Okay, this is another interesting one. As someone who does use e-hailing platforms, mainly Uber, there's some significant changes, I think, and maybe challenges to what may be the norm, right? So I understand that an e-hailing drivers under this banner of Shesha, S-H-E-S-H-A, they want to go live tomorrow, May the 1st, right, across the province of Gauteng. And the plan is that there are specific areas of focusing on safety and some very unique benefits for, the riders, that's me, and the drivers as well. I'm going to find out more about it. Let's speak to Nomsa Mdluli, who's the spokesperson for Shesha. Nomsa, goodness, the last time we spoke, you were on the other side of the newsroom reading the news. So that's a long time ago.
Absolutely. It feels so strange now being on the other side of the mic being interviewed. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well. As you know, I'm also back on air after a long absence, so there we are. Things change in the world, right?
Yes, Ashraf, I've been following for a while. Good to have you back.
Thank you so much. Right, help us understand what's going on here. With what is Shesha? What's the plan?
So Shesha is an e-hailing service that is proudly South African. And when this whole thing was conceptualized, we actually wanted to plug some of the holes that exist in the e-hailing space in South Africa, right? The first one was that there was a commotion between the taxi industry as well as the e-hailing industry. Mm-hmm. So before we could even begin operations, we needed to bring the two parties together so that there can be harmony as far as our operations are concerned. And as a result of that, the taxi industry actually even came on board and invested in the company. So that's one thing that is also so exciting. But another thing, as you touched on safety features, which is what a lot of our e-hailing users and e-hailing drivers have been complaining about. So we've kind of tightened that as far as, verification is concerned. Our system is linked to the Home Affairs system. So there are a lot of ways in which we verify in order to ascertain that people are who they say they are. We've had drivers that have been attacked. We've had users that have been attacked. So we've made sure that we plug those holes as far as security is concerned as well.
Okay, so let's get the first things first. I mean, you effectively, I know Uber, I know Bolt, there could be many others, I don't know, but those are the ones that I'm aware of, right? You're saying in its first instant, this is a different e-hailing company that in fact will play in the same space, but what's significant, it's a partnership and your investor are the other taxi operators as we know them, yeah?
So the Gauteng taxi industry is part of the investors, but I must just reiterate or stress that this is not a taxi operation. This is an e-hailing operation. So the people that will actually be operating our vehicles will be people that are already in the e-hailing space.
Okay, got that right. Now you've mentioned some of the features about plugging some of the holes that already exist. So how are you going to go about doing so? What are you going to do?
Okay, so obviously for drivers, we need to ensure that our riders are not being driven by people who've got criminal records, that they're not being driven by people whose identity has not been verified. So their ID numbers, facial verification, and banking information, all of that will be verified before they even start operating. We are also quite specific as well about the well-being of their cars. So we've actually taken all of these cars that will be, transporting our riders for checkups to make sure that people don't, get stuck on the road. And then we also have some very exciting features as well for users. Our prices are fixed, Ashraf. So whether you are using an e-hailing service during peak time or when it rains, our prices are fixed. I think that's something that riders would want to know about. And we also have an extensive network, so we'll be operating all across Gauteng.
Okay, so so you mentioned point is Gauteng first. I gather the plan would obviously be to go national. I get that, right? And I suppose it would have the same tracking device that the other services like Ubers and Bolts have, right? Because that's a key part of safety. If somebody's in the car, we need to know where they are and how near they are to home or not, right?
Yes. So we adhere to keep to the international standards of e-hailing. So there will be tracking and all of that. As I said, the safety of our drivers and our users is paramount. But let me also touch on something that's very exciting as well, Ashraf, is that so we use a cashless payment system, which is a wallet. But also we have also recognized that there are people who don't have bank accounts. Mm-hmm. And what we've actually done for them is that we have actually negotiated with prominent retail stores, and people who don't have bank accounts can actually go and buy the voucher and actually then load their wallet. Another thing that we're also planning to do in the near future is actually also make these vouchers available at spaza shops as well. are keen to airtime vouchers and all of that. So they're very interesting features that we've already come up with.
Okay. And I mean, bottom line to all of this, right? I mean, you see a gap in the market, and obviously the challengers then who are being challenged will try and improve their situation. Are you very concerned about the general issues of safety and drop-off in standards with the incumbent companies? Because I think many of us are.
We are. And Ashraf, to be honest, when we were busy doing the background checks with and authenticating some of the documents, our system picked up people who actually submitted falsified documents. And you actually ask yourself, and these are people who are already operating the e-hailing space. So you ask yourself, how were they able to bypass other systems?
That's a good question. You do know as well that many of the drivers from e-hailing companies, in fact, work for 2 companies. So they could actually end up working for 3 companies now.
Yeah. So with Shesha, because we've given a 10% stake to the Gauteng E-Hailing Association Trust, we've given them a 10% stake in the company. So if one wants to become a full-time Shesha operator, there'll be a cutoff point where they will not be able to service other e-hailing companies because we are actually giving them benefits. So through the trust, medical aid will be dispersed, bursaries for their children, disability insurance and all of that. So we're giving them a sense of empowerment.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to download the app and try and use it, and I'll let you know, because up to now, and I'm saying this with a smile, how do you know a car is an Uber car at the moment? You know, because one of the hubcaps are missing. That's my general observation around it. And I'm saying, Luli, thank you for your time. Check it out, Shesha, SHESHA, but hopefully we'll get them to tweet out the link to the app as well after this.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500 Rand from Outsurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 Rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The students from Fort Hare University have calculated that only a win will elevate them from the bottom half. Meanwhile, Thunderbirds ladies are in dire need of 3 points to escape from the basement. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, the University of Fort Hare versus Thunderbirds ladies, on Wednesday 1 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM, leading the conversation. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Tell you what, if you are called the father of black business, then you must know that you've done something quite remarkable in your life. That is the case regarding Dr. Sema Motsenyane, right? He sadly passed away yesterday. He founded the African Bank and has been involved to a large degree as well with the National African Federated Chamber of Commerce and many other institutions that dealt with the growth of black business on a national scale. But having passed away, it's time to reflect on what he's done. So firstly, Lawrence Mavunla is with us, the president of NAFCOC. Lawrence, great chatting to you. You're on the National Pulse, but a really sad time to talk to you.
Good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, but I'm suggesting it's a sad moment to talk, isn't it?
It is indeed, because the father that we always looked up to is no more, and I really miss him, because I have spent the past 40 years working with him, and I really think that he's going to be missed by many, many people, and the young people who are growing up are going to really miss his guidance and counsel.
You know, we sometimes assume everybody knows about him because he's quite formidable, but the reality is many people listening, maybe younger people, are unaware of his achievements. So it's a good time to talk about that. I mean, what has he achieved that stands out?
I think he is a visionary, because we had in the past, if you wanted to see rich people and tycoons, it was the retailers, people who owned retailers in the township. And those people at a time, they were able to really keep the black community in rural areas, in the townships, vibrant, and keep those towns together. And he established one of the chains, and it was referred to as a black chain, which was the retailers which already started in Soweto, in Paraguanas, as well as in Vosloorus. And the intention was to spread it around the country so that we had one similar brand like a Spar. And that was one of his initiatives. But also he founded African Bank. And African Bank is one of the very large organizations that we started from scratch. And it took a period of about 10 years to collect the 1 million rand in order to get the bank registered. And some of the buildings are still iconic and standing today. He established Management and Leadership Development Center in Soshanguve. And that Management and Leadership Center I'm referring to is standing today as we speak. And NAFCOC had a farm, and we still have a head office, and we've got an iconic name, NAFCOC.
Why do you think, I mean, the plan really is for people to find out more, and they must Google it. We won't have enough time. But what were his qualities like in terms of his, his personality and characteristics that got him to achieve as much as he did, and being this visionary?
I think he was able, in the past, we used to have TPVV states, the Bantu stands, and each one of those had a chamber of commerce named after it. We had Bokok, which was meant for Buputatswana. We had Venda Kok. We had KwaZulu Inyanda. We had different chambers, and his ability to bring all those organizations under NAFCOC and create one organization was something remarkable that I came across. And later on, as early as 1993, when we were organizing, 1992, when we were organizing the new
okay, I'll give you 15 seconds. We're going to wrap up. We're on to news. Go ahead, yeah?
Yes, and then he was able to bring all of that together, including sectors, transport and the informal sector.
Okay, well, there you are. I mean, that's why, the accolade and the title, the father of black business, that, of course, referring to Dr. Sam Motsoniani, who sadly passed away yesterday. In fact, I had the pleasure of meeting him twice. Had a long interview with him on my previous stint at SAFM and met him at a couple of big events. And inspiring person indeed. And long may his vision and his legacy inspire others as well. Lawrence Mavunla from NAFCOC, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. Let's now get to the news with Daneo.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories. SABC disputes reports of Monare's second vetting process, and KSEC admitted as a friend of the court in the Zuma Electoral Court matter. A very good afternoon. The SABC has denied reports that his group executive for news and current affairs, Moshweshwe Monare, is being pressured to undergo a second vetting process. Monare was appointed in June 2022. The SABC says the vetting process is part of his contract. The public broadcaster says in a statement that all top-level executives are subjected to vetting and obtaining security clearance as part of their conditions of employment. The SABC says Monare submitted a security clearance form in October 2022. Lerato Makola reports.
The SABC says it's not involved in scheduling such vetting or any aspect of this process. That is the prerogative of the state security agents under the presidency. Yesterday, the presidency said Monare was not being targeted, but that he had failed to complete the verification process, which involves a polygraph test. Monare does not want to subject himself to a polygraph test. The South African National Editors Forum and the Campaign for the Freedom of Expression, among others, said in a statement that the vetting process undermines the fundamental principle of media and editorial independence and freedom of the press. I'm Lerato Makula, SABC News in Johannesburg.
The Constitutional Court has granted the application for the Council for the Advancement of the Constitution, KSEC, to be admitted as a friend of the court in the Zuma and the Electoral Court matter. The IEC is appealing against the Electoral Court order that allowed former President Jacob Zuma to remain on the Umkhonto weSizwe party list. Zoleka Kodashe reports.
In papers before the Apex Court, KSEC anchors its argument on the separation of powers doctrine and the nature and legal effect of the remission of sentence granted to the former president by his successor. It says the power of remission is an executive power and not a judicial one. The organization added that remission does not undo the sentence imposed by the court or the period of time actually served by the offender. The Apex Court has now directed KSAC to file written submissions by Monday, and parties wishing to respond to these submissions to do so by Wednesday, the 8th of May. Zoleka Kodashe, SABC News, Johannesburg.
We move to Limpopo now, where police are searching for suspects in connection with a business robbery and malicious damage to property at a filling station in Danielton. Police spokesperson Malisela Ledwaba says the armed suspects fired multiple shots outside the station guard room, forced the victims out and instructed them to lie on the floor. Ledwaba says they used explosives to gain access to cash in a safe.
It is reported that the supervisor of a filling station was busy with her administrative duties when she saw 4 unknown male suspects armed with rifles escorting one of her colleagues to the guard room and also threatened other employees. The victims were forced out of the guard room and instructed to lay on the floor. Upon investigation, it was discovered that suspects blasted the drop-in safe and fled the scene with undisclosed amount of cash, driving a Toyota Quantum minibus.
In other news, the late Dr. Motsoku Pheko has been remembered as a man who championed for the progression of women. The anti-apartheid activist, academic, historian and lawyer was being remembered at a memorial service at UNISA in Pretoria. He passed away over a week ago. Professor Dinong Paswana from the Thabo Mbeki African School says Dr. Pheko believed women were the foundation of society.
Dr. Pheko strongly believed that women are the foundation of society. He championed their progress, steadfastly confronting the obstacle they encountered. He prioritized their education against insurmountable odds, celebrated their achievements, reveling in their capacity to overcome hurdles and affirming their value in every pursuit. His other favorite quote My girls are great, just great. Wow, what a father.
Lastly, officials in Kenya say more than 160 people are now known to have been killed in weeks of flooding and a landslide following heavy rainfall. An inadequate drain system is believed to have worsened the flooding. The BBC's Barbara Plett-Asher has the details.
This has been a particularly punishing rainy season in Kenya and the wider region, with heavy downpours compounded by the El Niño weather pattern. But the tide of water that swept away parts of Mai Mahiu was the most catastrophic event so far. The torrents of mud and water caught people unaware on Sunday night, and they are still looking for missing loved ones. They've rescued survivors trapped in the mud and pulled out bodies tangled in uprooted trees, and they've taken shelter in empty schools. Forecasters are predicting more rain to come, and government officials warn that dams in other parts of the country are full to the brim, so people need to be prepared to move quickly.
Recapping the top story this hour, the SABC has denied reports that its group executive for news and current affairs, Moshosho Monare, is being pressured to undergo a second vetting process. Monare was appointed in June 2022. The SAB says the vetting process is part of his contract. Headlines at 4:30 for SFM News. I'm Dino Mutaung.
And coming up in your sports this hour, tributes continue to pour in for late boxing legend Dingaan Thobela. Mike Tyson to fight in a professional boxing match, and Proteas netball game against Malawi postponed to later in the year. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedford View is queuing on both routes towards Gululis Interchange, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash reported near Regal Avenue. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a crash before Hammersdale exit. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 eastbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck reported just before Umlaus Road. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound is slow moving. That's towards Rhodes Drive. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and Blaauberg Road westbound in Tableview is slow moving at Key Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.9 FM in Port Elizabeth. Good afternoon, passengers. This is your captain speaking. I'd like to begin by welcoming everyone on board to Flight S3 2024 as we channel our sense of adventure and inbound for a trip around the breathtaking wonders of Africa. So get ready to open up and see our continent like never before. Africa's beauty is a sight to behold, from the peaks of Tanzania to the rainforests in Rwanda, from the pyramids in Egypt to the lakes in Malawi. There's magic in every destination that opens our eyes and changing our lives forever. Our trusted cabin crew, Doctors Fez and Anesu, will keep you entertained throughout the journey. On behalf of our crew members, we'd like to say thank you for flying with us and channeling a better you. Don't forget to catch the new season of Top Travel every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on S3. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. S3, open up.
The students from Fort Hare University have calculated that only a win will elevate them from the bottom half. Meanwhile, Thunderbirds ladies are in dire need of 3 points to escape from the basement. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, the University of Fort Hare versus Thunderbirds ladies, on Wednesday 1 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
We've had such conversations already in the first hour of the show. First on purpose and the importance of purpose in your life, and purpose being more important than a job. That means you find purpose, the job will follow. Not get the job and then the purpose will follow. If you have an opinion on purpose and where purpose fits into your life, well, let me know. Voice notes or text 0614 104 107 and then to call in 086 000 2032. We also spoke about the late Sam Motsenyane, and we certainly spoke about the ATM ATM party or the ATM movement wanting the death penalty to be reintroduced in terms of a referendum. And many people have commented. I haven't quite played them as yet. We're going to get some of the voice notes and take your calls on that issue in a few minutes' time. We'll also talk, by the way, about the national awards that comes out every year around this time. You know that. And we will talk about a picket put together by the new party. I say new because they haven't yet been to Parliament, Rise Mzansi. Picket at the JSC, in particular reference to the sex for jobs scourge in the mining and the retail sector. We'll find out more about that pretty shortly. Now, let's go back to the big issue that's certainly dominated our news coverage for the last 2 weeks or so, which is the issue of Jacob Zuma and the and his political party and where that fits in and where he fits into all of that. Now, we do know already, right, that the electoral court ruled allowing former President Jacob Zuma to contest a seat in Parliament as part of the MK party. The IEC, they want that ruling to be set aside, okay? In the context of all of that, the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, which is KSAC, right, they want to be admitted as a friend of the court in this issue. Let's find out what that really means with Lawson Naidoo, Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Lawson, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. So help us understand your organization's position and what do you really want to do?
Well, Ashraf, we've applied and have been admitted as a friend of the court as an amicus in this case. We believe that the case raises issues of fundamental constitutional importance that needs to be determined by the highest court. And we will advance a set of arguments to try and assist the court in coming to its conclusion. And we're going to really address two particular aspects of this matter. The first is the effect of a remission of sentence on the sentence itself. It is our argument based on interpretation of the Constitution as well as foreign and comparative law that a remission of sentence does not reduce or have any impact on the sentence that is imposed by a court. There is a fundamental separation of powers between the role of the judiciary and the role of the executive. When it comes to a sentence, the executive is entrusted to administer that sentence, but cannot change that sentence. Remission has no impact on the conviction and on the sentence imposed in the first place. Secondly, we believe that the electoral court was misguided in coming to the conclusion that the fact that the conviction and sentence of Mr. Zuma was non-appealable did not had an impact on the provisions of Section 47 of the Constitution, which says that anybody who's been sentenced for more than 12 months is not eligible to stand as a candidate for the election to the National Assembly.
Okay, so in terms of applying and having been accepted to be a friend of the court, I mean, you've also, as you've mentioned, you've taken up a position on this issue. And the position differs from what has been decided already in terms of that electoral court ruling, right? Why do you feel differently about it? And in this case, you'd be very supportive of the IEC's position.
Yeah, well, our view is that, as I say, based on the interpretation of the Constitution that we have, which is supported, as I say, by foreign and comparative legal jurisprudence, we believe that the electoral court came to the incorrect order in its case, and its reasonings that were released on Friday, have not persuaded us otherwise. And we believe that the arguments and the examples that we can present to the Constitutional Court, as I say, will assist that court in interpreting these range of provisions in the correct manner and give clarity and finality on this issue.
Okay. Clearly, this is a big issue, and the law is the law and stays clear of emotions, but it is an emotional issue that's being played out now with the countdown to a month towards the elections. I mean, clearly, you're aware of the implications, whichever way it goes, right?
Indeed, and I think our interest in this matter, Ashraf, is really to get a legal certainty and legal clarity from the Constitutional Court. And so we welcome the fact that the Electoral Commission has chosen to appeal the Electoral Commission has chosen to appeal the decision of the Electoral Court, and that this matter is ripe for determination by the Constitutional Court. At the very heart of this case, Ashraf, is the fact of the interpretation of the order of the Constitutional Court itself when it found Mr. Zuma guilty of contempt of court and decided to impose a 15-month sentence. It can be no more appropriate for the very same court to interpret its own order, which it will be required to do in this case.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to bring to the fore?
Well, I think, as I say, this is an issue of utmost constitutional importance. The matter is going to be heard on the 10th of May, next week, Friday, which is just a short while before the election happens. And we certainly hope that the Constitutional Court will be able to apply its mind and provide a decision ahead of the 29th of May, even though its reasons may only follow later on.
Okay, and that's where we're going to leave it for now. I'm pretty sure we'll have further chats about this issue, maybe post 10th of May. Lawson Naidu, thanks for your time. Lawson being the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Your calls on this issue and all the other issues that really gets to your pulse and the national pulse right after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, we spoke earlier on to the representative from the leadership of the African Transformation Movement, and they were very clear that they stand by the issue of the death penalty, and it needs to go to a referendum. Of course, that can only happen if they, get to Parliament and then, get the referendum and then change the constitution. But I mean, the points they raise are certainly worth debating, isn't it? So we've certainly had lots of people around the country who express their opinions. Felix from Umtata certainly has an opinion. Go ahead, Felix. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good indeed, right? Felix, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm standing with ATM about the death penalty because we've got a death penalty as we're walking around today. We are killed. Innocent people are killed every day. And mostly, you'll find out these people will look after them, will take lawyers for them. When they kill us, this so-called government of ours, still get lawyers for them, advocates, pay them, and on top of it, go and give them 3 meals a day for 20, 30 years. Who's paying?
Okay,
so the death penalty at least, because the death penalty that was used in the apartheid era, they used it to the wrong people, because I don't see why you should give somebody a death penalty on political grounds, because that was politically motivated.
And if we did that, I mean, what's the checks and balances? I mean, it's a long way happening if it does happen. What would be the checks and balances that we don't have the wrong person being killed, who's actually innocent and not guilty?
Those things do happen anyway, all around the world. It won't be happening in South Africa only. Secondly, our budget, because if you can tell me how much we're spending on these criminals behind bars, a month or a day for one of them. Secondly, you even pick them, you get them lawyers to represent them. Whose money is that? What could that money have been doing for the people that are innocent? Innocent people are mowed down every day. You can't send your child to the shop today, can you? You should have children to us, huh?
Yeah, I certainly do. Okay, got your point of view. Let's see if we can get further calls. I mean, here's an interesting one. The death penalty won't work.
Ashraf, your guest president, this issue of death penalty, it won't work under this government. It's so incompetent. We'll end up killing innocent people. They always make mistakes every day. Unless we can change the government first, then we talk about the death penalty.
Well, I think it's very linked, isn't it? I mean, the current government, the ANC-led government, are very clear in terms of their position. The constitution is very clear, so it needs a constitutional change, and that would mean change in government. I'm not suggesting that is what we must do, but that is what would be the requirement. One will not happen without the other. I don't think so. Here's another one on the... Let me just see if I've got this right. There's another one on the death penalty. But before that, there's the issue of political party manifestos that we need to hear.
Afternoon, Ashraf, hearers of the station. You see, I think after the next election, after this one, after one, then No politician must come telling us it's going to create jobs. It's got to fight crime now. They must come with another manifesto, not about creation of the jobs, because it's a duty bound that government must create jobs. It's a matter of must. There's no need to tell us. Crime fighting, there's no need to tell us. Please, next time, don't do this. Tools from Minanda. Bye.
Next time, don't do this. I'm not too sure what you're referring to, but I certainly get your point about don't do this. Thanks for that. Right, we're going to move on to other issues. We'll talk about the national awards that, as you know, gets dished out every year around this time, and significance of those. But we'll also pick up the issue of the Rise Mzansi, the new political party, and they've been picketing today outside the JSE and picking up some really significant issues in terms of what it takes to get jobs, and they've gone to the JSE for that reason.
The University Registrar and Secretary to Convocation, Dr. Joel Baloy, cordially invites all members of the University to attend the convocation to attend the AGM on Saturday, 11 May 2024 in Polokwane, Meropa Hotel at 10:30. The AGM will consider the Vice-Chancellor State of Campus Report, the President of Convocation Report, and amendments to the Constitution of the Convocation. To RSVP and confirm attendance, please visit www.univen.ac.za/announcements or contact Mr. Mashuda Ramarebo on 060-906-1902.
It's time to commemorate Izinja's game, the ones with greatness beyond limits and boundaries. The incredible class on the field, court, ring, bench, and boardroom. This is the 17th Annual SA Sport Awards, celebrating 30 years of freedom through sporting excellence. Experience the SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 5 May on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 at 8 p.m. Proudly brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the SA Sport Awards. Hashtag Izinja's game. Hashtag SASA 17th edition. For the love of the game.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so I understand that the Rise Mzansi party, well, not yet in Parliament's party, one of the many new ones, they have been picketing outside the JSE today. And ordinarily, if I tell you that's what they're doing, I would think that you'd get your pulses racing and thinking there's probably a picket or a protest against big business versus, other forms of how the economy turns. But that's apparently not the case. Let's find out exactly why they were there with Gugu Ndima, who's the now newly appointed national spokesperson of Rise Mzansi. Gugu, great chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So you were at the JSE today. Why?
Members of Rise Mzansi picketed outside the JSE today to highlight the plight of job seekers who are being exploited through the malpractice of sex for jobs or cash for jobs by potential employers or labor brokers. So we specifically highlighted the retail and mining sectors, given the significance and impact that these specific sectors have on job creation, and that they are largely located within our communities. So a lot of young people, as they move out of school, would usually go to these sectors, and if it's mining-based, they would go there. But also because this specific malpractice is largely identified in these specific sectors where young people, women in particular, are asked or solicited sex for jobs or to pay for the jobs that they're seeking for. So Rise Mzansi demands that this practice be identified for what it is, and that is pure criminality.
Having said that, I mean, it's not a practice that I would think is official policy of any of any company. It cannot be, right? So what are your stats and figures that suggest it is at a level so high that warrants you to protest?
Over the past 18 months, Rise Mzansi has been engaging with communities, and this is one of the rife issues that have been coming out specifically for young people, to say that these are practices that have even been institutionalized in local government. So given the high rate of unemployment and how vulnerable young people are, they find themselves having to compromise, sacrifice the lost money you have, or find yourself having to exchange your body for a job. So on the basis of what we've heard across the country on with regards to this, and given these specific sectors coming out and being highlighted, we believe that this is a call or a carrion issue that we want to take up upon. And the reason why we also took it to the JSE is because most of these companies are listed there. We believe that as a regulatory board, JSE can also play a part in finding solutions, but also including the South African SALTA, as well as the South African Chamber of Commerce.
Wouldn't it be then advisable to pick it outside the South African Chamber of Commerce directly, if you're talking mining?
Well, the memorandum wasn't sent only to the JSE. As we said, these are companies that are listed there, but we've distributed the memorandum equally also to the South African Chamber of Commerce, as well as SALTA, including various ministers, as well as the departments who we believe can play an integral part in ensuring that we legislate this as not a practice but an offence, including corruption, and a criminal offence that is tantamount to sexual assault for people that get exploited.
I mean, do I take it this is not a case of turning something which is legal into something illegal, because that's already illegal. We know that already, right? This is a case of policing and implementation. Should it then, besides business, is it not again another South African police matter?
It is definitely that. So what we are calling for is that government and legislators should recognize that asking for money for jobs is a particular standalone criminal offence and a form of corruption. Of course, as you indicate, but soliciting sex for jobs or cash for jobs is normally seen as something that happens or has become a norm as a result of the rate of high unemployment. A lot of victims get victimized in the process if they want to report it, or you find that people don't report it at the end of the day. So we want this to be specific. So legislation or a piece of legislation that speaks specifically to this malpractice.
How, in terms of the memo, have you had a response? I mean, besides thank you, we received it.
Well, we had quite a good day. We actually appreciate that it was received by the JSE. We will definitely be interacting and engaging with the responses that we'll be having over the next couple of days. But it's something we're taking up. It's not an election or a campaign issue. It's something we're quite passionate about, given the fact that unemployment is impacting in our society, in our communities, and largely young people.
Interesting. I mean, you say it's not a campaigns or election issue, but I mean, the reality is, if I was your campaign manager, one of the things you do, particularly as a smaller party, is highlight major social problems and amplify them in the build-up to the elections, which is exactly what you've just done.
Well, you would also appreciate that RISE is a young organization, and many of the things, I mean, we are committed to building this organization, but many of the things that we would initiate and do at this point would be seen as that. But as indicated, these are things that we are definitely going to be pushing through, advocating for, and working with various stakeholders to ensure that there is some action taken and things that are done beyond elections.
I sort of know, looking at what your leader, Songezo Zibi, has said in the past, that it's not just the election for a new party, it's beyond that. So for you, as we wrap up, maybe for you, the three biggest social concerns that you have, besides some of the obvious issues around the economy that Rise in Mzansi would want to raise before and after the election, would be what?
Unemployment right at the top, as we've indicated, this is part of it. Definitely issues of service delivery. They are impacting on the economy. If you don't have a functioning government, you won't be able to ensure a running economy. And last but not least, very important, leadership. We need leadership in governance. We need leadership in institutions of governance. And that is something that we lack. And we're going to move with that towards the next 5 years and ensure that it's one of our priorities as well.
And let's see how that plays out, as your hashtag says, what we need new leaders, and see whether the country buys into that vision. Thanks for your time, Gugu Ndima, the Rise Mzansi's national spokesperson. They today at the JSE as part of an attempt to try and raise the issues of people who have to pay to get jobs, physical money, and then pay in terms of sex for jobs. And they want to highlight that issue, particularly in the mining and in the retail sector. How much do you know about that? Would you like to add your thoughts on that? You can WhatsApp 0614 104 107, call in 086 000 2032. And as always, on SFM Radio on Facebook as well as on the X platform on Twitter, just tag us and use that hashtag The National Pulse and share your opinions too. Let's get the news headlines now. It's 4:30 with Daneo.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 4:30. The Department of Health has dismissed what they call fake news about the COVID-19 Omicron XBB variant that has been circulating on social media platforms. In other news, the SABC has denied reports that its group executive for news and current affairs, Moshosho Monare, is being pressured to undergo a second vetting process. And DA leader John Steenhuisen has highlighted the high unemployment rate as a major contributor to high levels of crime in Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hoos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Eastbound in Benrose has a crash near the Reuven Road exit. In Sunninghill, the N1 northbound has a crash at Buccleuch interchange, and the N1 northbound has a crash at Rivonia Road. Modderfontein Road eastbound in Kempton Park has delays, that's near Gautrain Bridge, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash before Allendale Road exit. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Hillcrest is where a vehicle fire incidents reported after the Shongweni exit. All lanes are open. The N3 eastbound is queuing at Ashburton, and the N3 eastbound has a crash before Hummersdale exit. In Cape Town, Everstal Road northbound in Brackenfell has heavy traffic towards the De Bron Road. In Mitchells Plain, Veltevreden Drive is closed between Cedar Avenue and Spine Road, and AZ Berman Drive northbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. And Jan Smuts Drive in Athlone is slow moving at Klipfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Ashraf.
Okay, let's. I'm looking at. Something's distracting me, but it's not the cricket team, because what's your big story? You tell me.
Well, we're looking at boxing this hour. Tributes have continued to pour in for late boxing legend Dingaan Thobela, also known as the Rose of Soweto, who passed away last night. Sports Minister Zizi Godwa has hailed him as someone who elevated South African sport through his success in boxing, and that he inspired future boxers and champions from Soweto, Mdantsane, Thohoyandou, and other parts of the country. In his prime, Thobela had 3 world titles in 2 weight divisions, the WBO and WBA lightweight belts. He also held the most prestigious WBC super middleweight belt. Still staying with boxing, the much anticipated boxing match between former world champion Mike Tyson and boxer Jake Paul has been officially sanctioned as a professional fight. This means that the outcome of the fight will appear on the records for both fighters, and this bout is set for the 20th of July in Texas and will be governed by certain conditions, such as it can only be 8 2-minute rounds and they must weigh just under 1 kilogram of gloves. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one. In cricket, Jofra Archer has been recalled to the England squad for the defence of the T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and United States in June. Archer will make his latest comeback from a long-standing elbow injury that has prevented him from playing for England since March 2023. Then fellow fast bowler Chris Jordan also earns a recall, but there's no place for Chris Wokes, who's a World Cup winner in both limited overs formats. Elsewhere in football, Borussia Dortmund coach Edin Terzic says that the semi-final opponents, Paris Saint-Germain, were billed to win the Champions League. This is ahead of tomorrow's first leg, and Terzic says that lifting the European Cup has been the main objective of PSG since being taken over by Qatar Sports Investments. PSG were crowned League One champions on Sunday their 10th league title in the past 12 seasons. Then in netball, Netball South Africa Chief Executive Officer Mudiegi Komane has confirmed that the highly anticipated test match between the Proteas and their rivals Malawi has been postponed from August to later this year. This decision stems from the unavailability of overseas-based players, coinciding with the conclusion of the leagues in Australia, New Zealand and England by the end of August, clashing with the scheduled test series. And in response to this challenge, head coach Jennifer Dake reached out to Netball South Africa requesting a postponement to provide her with additional time to prepare her squad for the test series.
Women's Month because some of them are only coming in August. The coach has actually been in touch with their clubs and with themselves, and they've realized that some of the leagues and the league that side end beginning of August. So we may then, because we want to also give the coach a chance, to train with them. So she has actually confirmed that it's been moved, but it's definitely happening by October. I can confirm that after, but I know it's definitely moved from August because the confirmation was that some of our players overseas are only coming in around that same month.
Well, then, rounding things off with the business of sport, we're looking at the most expensive sports in the world, and in no particular order. We've got equestrian sports at 46,000 rands. The most expensive part, obviously, being buying a horse.
I was going to say that. Sure.
Fencing.
Okay, I'm out. Thank you.
Fencing coming in at 93,000 rands, and the equipment is quite expensive as a whole. And not forgetting F1, and that one is coming at 1.8 million rand. And obviously, can you guess which one is more expensive?
No, I don't.
Well, in terms of F1. The car.
Well, I was going to just say you need to buy maybe a go-kart to start with as a young guy.
Absolutely.
Developing and just buy the car. And I know there's a few South Africans who have youngsters trying to do just that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get some names soon. Yeah.
And there's a couple of South Africans, young kids actually, that are doing well. I hope that we get to see a South African being an F1 driver one of these good days.
Listen, just a quick one. I mean, really sad about Dingaan Thobela. He was absolute legend, 3 times world champion, right?
Absolutely. I've got memories of watching some of his boxing bouts with my dad because he loves boxing, and my goodness, he was amazing. And it's true that he inspired a whole lot of boxers in the country to love the sport. It's just sad in terms of what the state of boxing in South Africa is currently looking like.
You're right. And I mean, he's titled the tagline, The Rose of Soweto. Lovely. I've got his book. He's not with us, but his book is with me, so I can still live through that legacy in that book itself. Yeah, there we are. So certainly condolences to the family of Dingaan, The Rose of Soweto, Thobela. Yeah.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Nna le bitso la ka ke Bonolo Moagi di Bantswang ba re ke Miss B Morara Miss T Moahlo D the Bonnie B Bonbon, and we'll be now playing Keno on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed, but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Be part of the 17th Annual SA Sport Awards under the theme Celebrating 30 Years of Freedom Through Sporting Excellence, with great prizes to be won every week. All you have to do is SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 32020 to vote for your favorite People's Choice Nominee of the Year. SMS is charged at R1.50. Free SMSs do not apply. The nominees are A. Eben Etzebeth, B. Garda Steyn, C. Siamtanda Siya Kolisi, D. Pesitau, E. Kirsten Neuschafer. SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 3/2020. Voting line closes at 9 p.m. on the 5th of May 2024. T's and C's apply. For more information, visit dsac.gov.za. Catch the SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 5th of May on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 at 8 p.m. Proudly brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the SA Sport Awards. Hashtag #Isn'tJustAGame. Hashtag SASA 17th edition.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to the markets now with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good chatting to you. Let's start with We Buy Cars, yeah?
Yeah, We Buy Cars indeed. Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. The guys expect their profits as core headline earnings per share to increase by 29%, and that was driven by higher volumes, higher average selling prices, improved margins, cost efficiency as a result of economies of scale. And remember, this company was unbundled from Transaction Capital and listed on the JSE on the 11th of April, and the initial public offering price was around 18.25 rand. Now the share price is up just over 1 rand.
Right, and then you've got news on local and global markets?
Yeah, when we started the session, markets were steady while the dollar rose against major peers amid speculation. The Fed may take a more hawkish tone when they announce their interest rate decision tomorrow. And China's manufacturing PMI was firm, but their non-manufacturing PMI missed expectation. And it remains clear that the economy's recovery, while still underway, it still lukewarm overall. And remember, a higher U.S. interest rate environment is traditionally bad news for emerging markets, as it makes their debt, especially their dollar debt, more expensive, and can also trigger capital outflows as investors opt for better returns in the US. And we saw the Eurozone April inflation was in line with expectation, and their Q1 GDP managed to beat expectations. And our March private sector credit extension rose by 5.1% year on year, accelerating from the 3.3% increase in the previous month. And data released earlier today continued the recent run of firm economic numbers, as U.S. labor cost increased more than expected in Q1, and that's because of rises when it comes to wages and benefits, confirming the surge in inflation earlier in the year. And after U.S. data showed healthy crude output and exports, oil prices extended losses, which were prompted yesterday by hopes of an Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Brent crude is down 3% at $85 a barrel, and a firmer dollar is taking some of the shine from the yellow metal, but gold is still poised for a third consecutive monthly gain, benefiting from safe haven demand and central bank demand. And we see gold now is down 1.3% at 2,304. Platinum is down a whopping 2% at 939, and the Dow is down 0.5%, S&P down 0.3%, DAX 0.4% down, CAC down 0.5%, but the FTSE is up 0.3%, and our JSE is down a mere 0.1%, unfortunately dragged down by resources, which are down 3.4%, but our financials are up 1.2%, and industrials up 0.6%, and Ashraf, the rand is 18.76 to the US dollar, 23.51 to the pound, and 20.10 to the euro.
Okay, that's it. So are we going to talk tomorrow? It's a public holiday.
Yeah, for us workers, we have to stay home. I don't know with you guys.
We're on air every single day, so I'll be here. Okay, Makwe, great chatting to you as always. Makwe Masilela from the Makwe Fund Managers, right? We'll have another marketing update coming up in just about an hour's time. In fact, there's some comments we've got. Ashraf Bongani here from Durban. Rise Mzansi picketing 2 points. What informs you that we, that's Rise Mzansi, are a small party? Well, my answer to that one is statistically, they haven't yet contested an election, and at this point in time, the polls suggest that they are a small party. If I'm proven otherwise, well, then we'll talk about them as a big party after May 29, right? Number two, on your question as to why the JSC, not Chamber of Mines, to add on our national spokesperson. JSE is like a board to these companies. As a result, the message will hit home when it comes from the top, as opposing to picketing in different companies' chambers. It's time consuming. Well, I know that's the point that she made. And there's another one. Ashraf, you are economical, playing our voice notes from Willie. Willie, let me tell you, I have to tell you this. There's a lineup of voice notes that come in. We are very restricted with time. So between myself and my production team, when we try and get a chance to play them as quickly as we can, we do. Believe me, like even now, we will hopefully play yours, okay? And we're certainly not economical. In fact, we understand the need that when you take the time to send out a voice note, as much as we can with the time we have, is to either take the call or the voice note or the text message, because we believe it's that important, because you in many ways reflect the national pulse of the country. So my apologies. Hopefully we will play yours ASAP.
This Election Watch feature is brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the #RememberMe initiative.
Right, so let's get into this feature called Election Watch, which we talk everything around the elections and building up to that May 29 election. Now, yesterday we spoke about Remember Me and why the Kagiso Trust, who sponsored this feature, suggested it's that important and drew on the fact that older people, if we reflect on what they sacrificed to vote for the first time, we need to remember them, right? Therefore, #Remember Me. Now, here's an interesting one. There's a project called YO, as in YOH, YO, comma, vote with an exclamation mark, right? And it's a student project that aims to make voting accessible to every citizen. I want to find out more about it. Daniel Klopper with me. He's the co-founder of YO, and I need to say it like that, YO, vote. Daniel, hi.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right, this sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Well, essentially what Your Vote is from in its inception was a student project which was born out of conversations that were had amongst friends and eventually was turned into something a little bit bigger after it gained traction. But at its core, it's a way to mobilize and give confidence to young voters for the upcoming election.
Okay, and how do you intend doing that? I mean, give me the practical layout.
Well, practically, what we were, among discussions of our friends, we were trying to find creative and engaging ways to get the youth confident with voting. What we did was then decide that we should find something which resonates among young people, which was based on the dating app format. So essentially, young people are able to go on a website, which is our website, Your Vote, and engage with political parties and their manifestos in the same way that they would engage with people on a dating app. So you essentially are able to go on dates with different parties or take a matchmaking quiz, which could give you a date, set up a date with you and a party by answering a few questions.
I mean, it sounds great, and it does help all of us with the complexities of who to vote for if we're uncertain about it, right? But this does suggest that people actually take the time to read and make comparisons versus just going on a gut feeling.
I mean, sure. I mean, that's a fair question, fair assumption. What Your Vote was trying to address as well is just the overwhelming nature of politics in South Africa. And as we all know, politics can be very misleading and heavy. So Your Vote is an attempt to solve that problem by trying to distill some more complex concepts down into more accessible formats for young people.
Okay. And the focus is on young people in this case, right?
Well, yes, it is. Initially, it was on young people, but of course, Your Vote applies to every concerned citizen in South Africa, and the site can be used by anyone. But of course, the dating app format is a way to get young people engaged. But the content surely applies to everyone who wishes to learn more about politics.
Okay, how can we reach this? What is it? An app? How do we get it? Tell me more.
So it is a website which is available in public domain. Just YOHVOTE.com. If you type that into your web browser, you will be taken to the website, and from there you can engage with different party profiles, or you can take the matchmaking quiz and try to engage with parties that way.
Does the engaging with different profiles also allow a Q&A with the different profiles?
Sure, exactly. I mean, besides for the matchmaker quiz, on the party profile section of the app, you can essentially get a bit of what each party has to offer. You can scroll through the different parties, which we're adding as time goes on. We have the major parties at the moment, and we're working on adding more. But on the different party profile pages, you can get a feel for what each party is like, what their vibe is like, and what they would bring to the table, essentially.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll leave it to you to tweet it out to us, tag SAFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, and on other social media platforms, and we'll gladly share it.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Certainly want to have a closer look at this one. Daniel Klopper from Your Vote, YOH, and an exclamation mark, and then VOTE is the co-founder there. Okay, let's get to some of the callers we're going to take, and we'll get voice notes that we can play in a moment.
Nna lebitso la ka ke Bonolo Moahlodi Bantswang ba re ke Miss B, morara Miss T, Moahlodi, the Bonnie P Bonbon. And we'll be now playing Kena on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed, but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
Students from Fort Hare University have calculated that only a win will elevate them from the bottom half. Meanwhile, Thunderbirds ladies are in dire need of 3 points to escape from the basement. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, the University of Fort Hare versus Thunderbirds ladies, on Wednesday 1 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM, leading the conversation. This Election Watch feature was brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the hashtag Remember Me initiative. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, I'll play some voice notes. I'll take calls as well on many of the issues, Rise Mzansi's issues, the ATM's position on death penalty, the new e-hailing service, Shasha, all those things, and whatever else you want to raise that you think is important. Thabo Mbeki, the former president, making some pronouncements today, which I'll maybe read up just now. Let's get to the issue of the death penalty, however, with that will certainly get your pulses racing. I know that. Sabonilo from Umlazi, hi, you're live on the National Pulse. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Thank you.
Hey, I'm just going to go a bit backwards. There was a reason why South Africa created the Constitution. We had an idea in mind, a certain state that we had in mind. A death penalty was not part of the plan. There's a reason for that. And the reason why the previous legal system accounted for the death penalty was because they had a different system that they were using. So when they created the Constitution, all those rights, those Section 11 rights, were created for a certain reason. Because legally speaking, some certain things can be done to someone, and then only 10 years later you find out that that legal system has to be changed. Just maybe you find that sometimes we say, if someone commits rape, for example, they have to get a death penalty. They commit first-degree murder, they have to get a death penalty. 10 years later, we change that. Are we going to bring back that person?
Well, clearly not. So therefore, what's your stance on the death penalty right now?
It's not part of our Constitution. It's not part of our plan. Once we create such things, then that means we have to review the whole Constitution.
Well, absolutely.
Because there is a base mind that creates what the Constitution is about. Ubuntu. Your child can be as bad as you want, no matter what. But you cannot kill your own child. They can do whatever they do. You will find a way to bring them back 20 years later, they are the president of the country.
Okay. All right, got that. You've made your point, and I think, ATM has their position. Whether enough people buy into it, it would require a constitutional change. We know that, right? Thanks for that call. Let's get to, I think we've got Thabo in Kroonstad there. Hi, Thabo.
Hey, Ashraf. How are you?
Good talking to you. Thank you. Right. What's your point?
Yeah, 3 issues. One, Zungula is very selective on the report that is actually relying upon. That report surveyed the people that is criticizing the elites, and the elites are the ones that have issues, and the ordinary masses of our people were not surveyed. So you cannot say the majority of the people wanted the capital punishment.
No.
Second, the character of our judicial system still favors those that have got a lot of money. If you don't have money, you cannot get. You can even be jailed because of you don't have a quality representation from the court. That is going to be a problem. And I think he's just using this matter as an electionary tool and nothing else. He does not believe that, because our constitution, the founding principle of our constitution, among others, the right to life. So he must clearly indicate as to whether he wants to actually affront that or not.
Well, he knows he is going to amend the constitution. Even I said so myself, he has to do that. He's got to convince enough people to vote, to convince to have a referendum, then to take it to the constitution, then change the constitution. That's another long story. But the other point that he makes, which is an important point, is our crime rate is incredibly high, and far too many people who are murderers are getting away with it. So here's the big question. If not death penalty, then what?
Yeah, I think we must just strengthen our policing, Ashraf. And you can check other countries where capital punishment is actually in place. They are still struggling to actually arrest this kind of criminality. So it's not going to assist this selectively choosing that one of is it Sudan that he made a mention of. But the majority of the countries where the capital punishment is, they are not getting any assistance. That is why majority of the countries have decided that we are not going to follow this particular route, because it's not helpful.
All right. Thabo, thanks for your input. Much appreciated, and hopefully we'll chat again sometime soon. Let's get to some of the other calls. By the way, we're going to have another conversation on the death penalty coming up just after 5 o'clock. So listen out for that. In terms of responses, people certainly have an opinion on the death penalty. Here's another.
Hi, SAFM. I concur with the gentleman who is of ATM. Yes, the death penalty must come back. More especially people who are dying, who are being killed are the black people. Black people are the ones who are being killed a lot. If it was another race in numbers, something should have been done as I speak. That's what's happening here in South Africa. Black people are dying. So let this death penalty come back. Thank you very much.
Okay, death penalty, let it come back. Certainly many people believe so. Clearly it's not possible at this point in time, okay? But I think the sentiments are important to hear. Here's another.
The constitution of this country was drawn up in a constituent assembly comprised of elected members of that assembly by all the voting population of South Africa. So this unfounded claim that the constitution is not based on the will of the people is untrue and false.
Got that? Well, that's what I felt initially, and that's what I told the guys from ATM. Maybe time for one more, and it's also got to do with the death penalty. Yeah.
Hi, Ashraf. These politicians will say anything just to get our votes. If the ATM was serious about bringing back the death penalty, why is it that they've never raised it in Parliament? I mean, they've had numerous opportunities to raise it in the last 5 years in Parliament. All that I know them for is trying to remove President Ramaphosa. Nothing about the death penalty. This is the first time I'm hearing about the death penalty from them. Thanks, Farai.
Well, I haven't heard it before from them, you're right. Who else, which other political parties have raised the issue of the death penalty now as paramount in this election? Here's another, and it's got nothing to do with the death penalty.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, we don't want death penalty.
We want employment. Our children want employment. We want to put food on the table. Death penalty won't deter anybody. In America, there's death penalty, but they are still killing each other there. It's just cheap politicking. We want food. Our children want employment. Period. Anonymous.
Well, you're not so anonymous. I can tell you now, you're anonymous in terms of name, but not anonymous in terms of what you're saying. Our children want food. If anything reflects a national pulse, it's exactly your comments there. Let's end with this. The apartheid government was so afraid of Beyers Naudé that for 7 years it banned him from being in a room with more than one person. But in 1994, he voted in the country's first democratic election and worked hard to help previously disenfranchised people do the very same. So on May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's #RememberMe initiative encourages South Africans to honor Naudé's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote, and therefore #RememberMe. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock and Greg is now taken over. Hi, Greg.
Thank you and good afternoon, Ashraf. In this news update, government dismisses fake COVID reports and the public urged to vaccinate. Good day to you. The Department of Health has dismissed what they call fake news about the COVID-19 Omicron XBB variant that is circulating on social media. The posts are advising South Africans to wear masks because of an alleged deadly and uneasily detectable variant. Department spokesperson Foster Mohale.
We urge members of the public to remain vigilant and ignore this malicious social media message whose intent is to cause unnecessary panic and confusion, especially as the country is entering influenza season. The fact of the matter is COVID-19 remains circulating at relatively low levels around the country, just like in other parts of the world. Therefore, there's no need for the public to panic because many people have developed some level of immunity from both vaccine and infections. The current strain or variant in circulation is less severe and less transmissible.
The Acting Chief Director of Maternal, Child and Women's Health, Leslie Bamford, has urged the public to get the flu and the HPV vaccine to avoid child deaths from childhood diseases. She was speaking at the African Vaccination Week event in Hebron, north of Pretoria.
For the past 10 years, we have been vaccinating girl learners in our schools against HPV, which is a virus, and by vaccinating girls, we protect them against developing cervical cancer. As they become women. Cervical cancer takes a long time to develop, but if we vaccinate them as young girls, we prevent them developing HPV and cancer in the long term.
The SABC's denied reports that its Group Executive for News and Current Affairs, Mashwesha Munare, is being pressured to undergo a second vetting process. He was appointed in June 2022. The SABC says the vetting process is part of his contract. The public broadcaster says in a statement that all top-level executives are subjected to vetting and obtaining security clearance as part of their conditions of employment. The SABC says Murani submitted a Z204 security clearance form in October 2022. Lerato Makola reports.
The SABC confirmed the vetting process is normal for all executives and that there is nothing sinister about it. The corporation says even newly appointed Group Chief Executive Officer Nomsa Chabeli is undergoing security clearance as a requirement of her employment contract. The SABC says it's not involved in scheduling such vetting or any aspect of this process. I'm Lerato Makola, SABC News in Johannesburg.
In election news, the DA leader John Steenhuisen's highlighted the high unemployment rate as a major contributor to high levels of crime in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape. The party is campaigning in the area. South Africans go to the polls on May 29th. Steenhuisen has promised to create job opportunities to fight rampant levels of crime in the Metro.
We know the best way to prevent our children from ending up in the clutches of gangsters is to make sure that they've got work opportunities. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin, and it shouldn't matter where you live. We need jobs for our young people, and we will deliver those jobs.
Chinese Coast Guard vessels have again used water cannon on Philippine boats in a disputed part of the South China Sea. The BBC's Jonathan Head has the details.
Filipino crewmen frantically ushered us inside as a Chinese water cannon raked the ship we were on, soaking everyone. We'd been invited to join a mission by the Philippines Coast Guard to Scarborough Shoal, a small coral reef in the South China Sea claimed by both countries. Since early morning, Chinese ships had been shadowing us. First, just one or two, but then more and more joined to make a flotilla, which separated and corralled a smaller Filipino ship and then set off in pursuit of the faster vessel which was carrying us, at times moving to within just a few metres and then cutting dangerously across our bows.
Top story, the Department of Health has dismissed what they call fake news about the COVID-19 Omicron XBB variant that is circulating on social media. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Spurs aiming for maximum points against Rise and Shine, and Swiatek fights back to reach Madrid Open semi-finals. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in Benrose has a crash near Reuven Road exit. In Sunninghill, the N1 northbound has a crash at Buccleuch interchange, and the N1 northbound has a crash at Rivonia Road. And the N3 southbound in Germiston has a truck crash at Geldness interchange. In KZN, on the M7, there's roadworks with traffic restrictions towards the Bel Air Road, Wakesley Road junction. The M13 eastbound in Pinetown has roadworks with traffic restrictions at the N3 Paradise Valley interchange. The N3 westbound in Hillcrest has a vehicle fire incident reported after Shongweni exit. All lanes are open, and the N3 eastbound has a crash before Hammersdale exit. In Cape Town, Okavango Road in Kraaifontein is slow moving at the N1 highway. In Brackenfell Boulevard northbound is slow moving at the N1 highway, and Eversdal Road northbound has heavy traffic towards De Bron Road due to a traffic light fault. And Voortrekker Road eastbound is slow moving through Maitland. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
The students from Fort Hare University have calculated that only a win will elevate them from the bottom half. Meanwhile, Thunderbirds ladies are in dire need of 3 points to escape from the basement. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game, the University of Fort Hare versus Thunderbirds ladies, on Wednesday 1 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
I see the former President Thabo Mbeki has been speaking, addressing the South Africa's 30 Years of Democracy event at Freedom Park. I'll try and pick out some of the quotes that he said, because some really important issues. Maybe just the one quickly. He says, and I'm quoting now from Fikile Mbalula's tweets, okay? He says that narrative that Eskom warned the government as early as in 1998 that if no immediate steps were taken to build new generation capacity, the country would suffer from serious load shedding from 2007. It is then said that the government ignored this alert and that it is this failure on the part of government which lies at the basis of the energy crisis that has affected our country. As I have said, this is a false proposition. This is Thabo Mbeki talking now. This is a false proposition advanced to hide the reality in terms of what has negatively affected the availability of electricity at various moments. There's a few more comments that he's made, which I will hopefully read out just now. Keep the calls coming, by the way. We need the calls. They're important. They reflect what you think and clearly reflects the National Pulse. To call in, 086 000 2032. You can voice note or text via WhatsApp, 0614 104 107. My name is Ashraf Garda. Incredibly, it's a month now since I'm hosting the show. It's 1 month. Sure. Okay. Let's get to an important issue that we spoke about earlier on. I want to now welcome the guest who'll talk about some of the aspects of what we spoke about earlier on, which is Professor Amanda Gous, Professor of Political Science at the University of Stellenbosch. Prof. Gous, great chatting to you. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon indeed. Right now, what I'm going to do is, I had a chat with Vuyo Zungula, who's the leader of the African Transformation Movement. They are very clear as a party that they want to bring back the death penalty, which we know that requires lots of changes, but they certainly believe that at this point in time, it is the citizens that are recipients on the receiving end of a death penalty every day, because so many people are not just killed, but they murdered. And that is a death penalty in its own right. I'm going to play a clip now when I asked him about the fact that what happened in 1994 and whether that reflected the will of the people, because he argues against that.
I think the most important aspect in this discussion, it is to reiterate that a law or a constitution must be must be based on the will of the people. Now, the reality is when the death penalty was abolished in 1995, which is after in fact, in 1995, which is in the first 1 or 2 years of the democracy that we have in our country, there was a public outcry, meaning people did not want the death penalty to be abolished. Therefore, the fact that we do not have a death penalty now goes against the wishes of the people. That's the first issue. The second issue is that there is so much preoccupation about the right to life of criminals, people who do not respect and honor the right to life of innocent people. So our point of departure as the ATM is to say we want to have a country whereby it is the will of the people that reigns supreme. The law, the constitution must be based on the will of the people. Whether a few powerful people in the country agree or do not agree, that is a non-issue. What we want, it is to have a system whereby it is the people that are basically directing the governance of our country. And on this point, we had submitted in 2019 a letter to the president of the country requesting that there needs to be a referendum so that the people can decide officially whether they do not want or they want the death penalty. So that is why we as ATM will keep on emphasizing that, because the death penalty, in our view, is a proper retribution for people who do not respect the right to life of others. One would even argue that there is a death penalty in our country because if 85 people are murdered on a daily basis by courtless, heartless criminals, there is a death penalty, but it's a death penalty for innocent people. What we are merely advocating for is to have a death penalty to punish the people, which is the criminals that are killing innocent people.
Right, that's the voice of Vuyo Zungula, representing the African Transformation Movement. My guest, Professor Amanda Ghost, you've heard those thoughts. Let's start with the first one, Prof. Ghost, that he's saying the death penalty, as was adopted in 1995, after the election of 94, does not represent the wishes of the people. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that we need to understand why people want the death penalty. It is because they believe the death penalty is a deterrent for other people to commit serious crimes. But what sociological research shows us that it's not a deterrent. I mean, whether you have it or not, people are going to commit crime anyway. So we are a constitutional democracy, and in our constitution there is a Bill of Rights, and that Bill of Rights, the first right there is the right to life. So whether you are a perpetrator, you also have a right to life. And that's why we have a criminal justice system which is supposed to look at issues of justice and then give an appropriate sentencing. So what needs to be tightened up really is the type of sentences that are given to serious crime and the bail conditions. Too many people come out on bail having committed a serious crime, and then they go on and commit that crime again. But I also...
Yeah, carry on.
No, but I also understand why people want the death penalty, because, we are just also tired of the crime, and as you rightly point out, that how many homicides happen per day. But bringing the death penalty back in a constitutional democracy with a Bill of Rights is not, that's not feasible.
So what would it take, without discussing the merits of the death penalty, that's a separate conversation, right? In terms of the legal process, let's say for the ATM, African Transformation Movement, to actually push this case of the death penalty, what would they need to be doing?
Well, I mean, as he says, that there needs to be a referendum, and we need to ask the people, the citizens, what they want. And most likely, in that referendum, a majority of people will say they want the death penalty. But that then directly undermines the Constitution. So what will happen then is that we need to amend the Constitution, and specifically the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights can only be amended by 2/3 majority in Parliament. So you have to have 2/3 out of the 200 members of Parliament to vote in favour of the death penalty.
So it's a long shot at this point in time.
It is a long shot because, amending a constitution, or specifically the Bill of Rights, is not an easy process. And like I said, you need 2/3 majority in Parliament. And I don't know who needs to call a referendum. That's most likely the President. And whether he will do that is, of course, a different story.
Yeah, I would think the ATM would have to drum up enough support in Parliament to actually convince the President to call up a referendum. So, I mean, that's their challenge, right? But here's the thought. I mean, the issue of the death penalty being abolished in South Africa when democracy dawned, in my understanding, was premised on the fact that it's not the way we live our lives. As you said, the right to life is sacrosanct in South Africa, even if people commit other crimes. At the same time, it's come out of the period of apartheid where people who may have been killed for political reasons and therefore did not have that right to life. Now, has the situation, I'm talking about socially, has that situation changed somewhat to the point that the ATM have said that there are too many people who are actually, well, they're being condemned to death anyway because statistically far more people are dying every single day and they're being murdered?
Exactly. So, I mean, it was exactly for the reason that, the death penalty was used for political purposes. So, people didn't commit crimes. They were opposed to apartheid. Many of them got the death penalty. And that's why we thought to abolish the death penalty. But we also have to understand that if we, start with abolishing the death penalty or bringing the death penalty back, it's a slippery slope. Because next week somebody says, now let's bring corporal punishment back. Have a referendum. Yeah, we should be able to have people punished by beating them, kids in the school by beating them. And so, you can, and there are other examples of what people would probably like to bring back to deal with disorder and social disharmony. And, we don't want to open that door.
Well, I mean, what we also want to do is to live and live longer and not be killed. Not one of us wants to be killed. If you're dying, you want to die a natural death anyway, right? So is there another way to relook at this? I mean, so if the death penalty is the wish list of the ATM, more than a death penalty is what they want is a life penalty. They want people to live longer, right? So I understand where they're coming from. And you made the point about tightening up in terms of courts and bail, but is there more that can be done? Because the truth is, the reality is that just not enough is being done, isn't it?
Yes, and I think, where the failure lies also is about policing. Not enough visible policing, not enough community policing, and police being in cahoots with criminals. So where a deterrent actually starts is through a form of visible policing. But our police force is very discredited, and they're overworked and underpaid, and all of that contributes to, police taking bribes and things like that. So you need to also think, how you're going to make the police force a valuable force and an added value to communities.
Can we end with what I asked from the very beginning, that the ATM leaders said that the abolishment of the death penalty in 1995 and even now goes against the wishes of the people, because that's not what the people want. And in fact, what he's saying, that first parliament, then 95, in fact, have gone very much against the will of the people. Does he have a point? We're not discussing the merits of the death penalty. Does he have a point about we were not canvassed? There was no referendum on it.
Yeah, but the point also is how does this party know that it's the will of the people? They're working with an assumption and anecdotal evidence. So where we've done surveys, through random sampling and stratifying doing it according to race, class, and all of this. Bringing back the death penalty is never in the top priorities of people. You know, they want jobs and they want medical care and stuff like that. But bringing the death penalty is not up there with those needs. So, I mean, this may also just be an assumption on the part of that party.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Professor Amanda Gous, Professor of Political Science at the University of Stellenbosch. Much appreciate you being a guest here on the National Pulse.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012-568-3233. That's 012-568-3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM leading the conversation. SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Does a company have to have a legal reason to test your blood or test whether you're intoxicated in the first place? It can't just be because we want to. They actually have to have a rational reason for that. Would that be right?
Absolutely. It's for operational reasons. For example, in mines, they have this random check-in, simply because of the risk that people pose when they come into the workplace if they have been intoxicated. In this particular case, this is a woman that consumed dacha or cannabis for medicinal purposes, not recreational purposes. It all depends on context. So therefore, I would be very careful in thinking that this is carte blanche license for people to smoke a joint the night before in order for them to get away with this.
Sabir Ahmed Shashpipe, thank you, an expert on labour law.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
And so the comments come in regarding the death penalty. Mzine Kleberga saying, it was the will of the people that ended the death penalty. It's untrue that we, the people, wanted the death penalty in 1994. This guy must read our freedom struggle history, at least from the 1980s, and ask himself, who did the death penalty kill? Okay, that's one. Let's do this. I want to pick out, and we are getting response. Another question mark on the death penalty. In fact, here's a question about punishment.
Ashraf, afternoon. We don't want a deterrent. We want a punishment. There should be a punishment for killing someone. Imagine if you had a family member that has been murdered, and you know that the perpetrator is going to get the same fate. I believe it will help you as a family to move on or to heal from that. So there must be a punishment. Whether it scares people or what, it doesn't matter, but there have to be a punishment for killing someone.
There has to be a punishment. Now, many may agree with you on that. The question is, what form should that punishment take? Let's move on to other things. I'll play some other voice notes and calls and text messages later on. We have this Innovation Hub feature now. By the way, let me remind you, the national awards that were announced earlier on, we're going to talk about that, to the son of Agri Cluster. Remember him? Well, as far as the Innovation Hub goes, now here's the story that's important. According to Cisco's 2024 Cybersecurity Readiness Index, well, what do you think? How many South African companies have ranked at the what is called mature level of readiness? Is it 50%, 30%, 20%? Well, the answer is 5%. Okay, let's understand this. Katlego Ngobeni, penetration tester at Iron Sky. Katlego, good chatting to you. You're on the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Thank you. So, 5% of South African companies are they able to withstand a cyber attack? Is that my understanding right?
Yes. So the mature companies that they are talking about are companies that are taking steps to prevent cyber attacks, as well as should their systems be breached, they also have business continuity plans or incident response where they're able to continue the business or the important processes that were affected by a cyber breach.
Okay, so 5%, I mean, I'm suggesting that should be a cause for alarm, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because if you can check, in the past year, cyber attacks have increased by 27%, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of companies in South Africa are being targeted by cyber criminals. So that is a cause for concern.
Why is that figure so low?
I think people have not really been paying too much attention on cybersecurity. So it's important, especially for companies to train, because what normally happens is that companies would invest a lot of money in systems and tools that would prevent cyber attacks. But what they normally don't do is train staff, because a lot of attacks would originate from phishing or something that is called social engineering, where someone would call and do their research and pretend to be someone you know or from a company you know, and you end up giving them credentials or information that they're not supposed to have. So I think as much as companies now realize the importance of cybersecurity, they also need to pay more attention in training people, because that most of the time is the weakest link in terms of the cybersecurity chain.
So how big is the cyber attack or cyber theft market then? I mean, can you put that in rand terms?
No, I don't have the figures right now, but it is huge, because a cyber breach is, if a company is ransomed, they put a ransomware on their systems. Those cyber criminals can demand as much as 5 million or more from that company. So I think it's better for companies to put measures in place to make sure they protect themselves from such incidences, rather than paying ransomwares that are high when the cyber criminals encrypt their data.
So I would think, amongst the people listening to us, we would have, bank managers, we would have industrialists, we would have politicians, DGs of companies, but also we'd have entrepreneurs, startup companies, people selling from their spaza shops, all of them using a form of computer to transfer monies, right? What advice, therefore, can you give? I mean, there's a whole range of people there. What advice can you give all of them, from the very top, the mature companies, to the startups?
Yeah, I think we all need to learn and take steps. For example, don't use the same password for everything. I know we tend to use something that is easy to remember. So make sure you don't recycle your passwords. Make sure you keep your data safe. You don't plug in USBs that you don't know who gave you the USB or where the USB was plugged before. So it's a matter of being informed and knowing what systems are at risk. If you are using systems that are connected to the internet, make sure that you do penetration tests on those systems to check if there are any loopholes before the bad guys can do. Because if you check them before, then you can be able to remediate those findings and make sure that your systems are protected.
I tweeted today saying that what do we do? How do we deal with the fact that we get hundreds of emails from banks and from individuals giving us proof of payments via email of monies we've received in the millions of rands? How do we deal with that? I mean, clearly those are fake.
Yeah, true. So banks normally, or financial institutions normally do specify that they will never ask for your personal information on the email or on an SMS. But as much as they do send proof of payments on these platforms, it's important, if you receive an email, to also look at the email, because sometimes what happens is these cyber criminals create a subdomain that looks exactly like a trusted domain that you normally receive information from or emails from. So it's also important to check. And also, they also make some spelling mistakes there and there. If you can be able to check correctly, you can pick that up. But the most important thing is to make sure that we get the relevant information as to how we can protect ourselves, because most of the breaches or cyber attacks are through phishing. In 2023, 33% of the attacks on organizations were successful, were phishing attacks, where someone sends an email and someone clicks on a link or downloads an attachment, and then the system, that person's machine gets compromised. The next thing you know, an entire organization is compromised.
Yeah, bottom line, cyber attacks are highway robbery and, the information highway, that is. Let's leave it at that. Katlego Ngobeni, penetration tester at Iron Sky. There's a comment again on the issue of death penalty, eye for an eye. That's the punishment for killing someone. That comes from Tabiso in Bloemfontein, and maybe there's another. Lots of people having very different views on this thing. In fact, some of them are saying, well, here's another one. Speaking of the death penalty, we have people who wrongfully are put in prison because of our biased law. How many innocent lives will die? As many are innocent on life sentences because of the slippery, corrupt law. From Brian Mabaye from Protea Glen. Okay, you think about all those things. It's time now for the news headlines at 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Thanks so much, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines. President Ramaphosa has emphasized the need to respect media freedom in South Africa. The Department of Health has dismissed what they call fake news about the COVID-19 Omicron XBB variant circulating on social media. And the Israeli Prime Minister says an offensive against Hamas in Rafah will be carried out regardless of whether a ceasefire or hostage release deal is reached. I'll have a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Soweto is slow moving towards the N17 Soweto exit. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Hurlingham is slow moving towards Peters Place, and Mabopane Highway westbound in Pretoria has delays towards the Hairpin Bend. In KZN, the N3 eastbound has a crash before Hammersdale exit. The R620 is closed in the Central Margate area due to storm damage, and the N3 westbound in Hillcrest has vehicle fire incident reported after Shongweni exit. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive is queuing at Voortrekker Road. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. The R300 northbound is queuing towards the N1 outbound ramp. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 southbound is queuing towards the N2 highway exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Right, you're going to talk soccer to me.
I am going to talk soccer. There's some DStv Premiership action tonight to look forward to. Cape Town Spurs will be looking for maximum points when they face Polokwane City at the Athlone Stadium. Now, the Urban Warriors are still at the bottom of the league standings with 15 points, but they're now 5 points adrift from the playoff spot. So they'll definitely be looking for those points to lift themselves up off the table. Rise and Shine are placed 12th on the log with a total of 30 points. And then Richards Bay take on Amazulu in the other clash. Elsewhere, the United States and Mexico have withdrawn their joint bid to host the 2027 Women's World Cup and will instead focus on bidding for the tournament in 2031. And it comes less than 3 weeks before the hosts were to be chosen at a FIFA Congress in Bangkok on the 17th of May. The remaining bids are from Brazil and a joint one from Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands. In cricket, Heinrich Nortje will make his international comeback from a 9-month absence at the 2024 T20 World Cup. Nortje, who has been in action at the IPL, has been named in South Africa's 15-player squad that will be led by Aiden Markram. Now, opening batsmen Ryan Rickleton and Seema Neil Bartman, both standout performers at this year's SA20, have also earned call-ups and could earn their first T20 caps. The T20 World Cup could also be de Kock's last international appearance. In terms of some notable exclusions, it includes former captain Themba Bavuma, Riley Rousseau and Wayne Pennell. In tennis, Iga Swiatek bounced back from dropping the first set to beat Brazilian Beatriz Maia to advance to the Madrid Open semifinals. The world number one found her rhythm in the second set and ultimately eased to a 4-6, 6-love and 6-2 victory. And she next faces either American Madison Keys or Tunisia's 8th seed Ans Jabeur for a place in the final. And she's bidding for her third WTA 1000 title of the season. after triumphs in Qatar and at the Indian Wells, and 9th in total. In Netball South Africa Chief Executive Officer Modiri Komane has confirmed that the highly anticipated test match between the Proteas and their rivals Malawi has been postponed from August to later in the year, and the decision stems from the unavailability of overseas-based players coinciding with the conclusion of the leagues in Australia, New Zealand and England by the end of August, clashing with the scheduled test series.
Women's Month, because some of them are only coming in August. The coach has actually been in touch with their clubs and with themselves, and they've realized that some of the leagues and the league that side end beginning of August. So we may then, because we want to also give the coach a chance, to train with them. So she has actually confirmed that it's been moved, but it's definitely happening by October. I can confirm that after, but I know it's definitely moved from August, because the confirmation was that some of our players overseas are only coming in around that same month.
Well, with that said, it is a wrap from my side, Ashraf. I'll be back again tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning and afternoon?
Yes, and
you're concerned
afternoon.
about the afternoon.
Tomorrow,
that's the national pulse.
I'm actually going to be here also in the afternoon.
Okay, good. Listen, quick question. Talking about netball, we hosted the Netball World Cup, about 6 months ago? Was it longer?
Yeah,
it's a fabulous tournament in Cape Town, right?
Absolutely.
Any idea whether that has helped in terms of the growth of the sport, both in awareness of just general awareness as well as more people playing netball?
I think so. I was looking at the attendance of the TNL right now, the Telkom Netball League, and it just seems that more and more people are interested in the sport, but also looking at the league. I think now they're sitting on 15 teams, which is more teams now in the league as a whole, and also we're marching towards the professional league, a professional netball league. Slowly but surely it's getting there. Netball, some of the netball players have contracts now, so it says a lot about the growth of the sport as a whole.
Something's happening there, which is just fantastic. That's great, because that's what a World Cup should be doing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just inspiring others to take up that sport. Okay, we'll chat to you tomorrow afternoon.
Well, that's it. It's a wrap from my side for SAFM Sport.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
The debate of universities will be witnessed on the field of play. The varsity derby between Amatax ladies and UJ ladies. Who are the most intelligent students? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria ladies versus University of Johannesburg ladies on Sunday 5 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
With only a few weeks left until South Africa heads to the country's most crucial polls, please join me, Sakina Kamwendo, at the Pella Community Hall in the Northern Cape on the 3rd of May from 12 until 2 p.m. right here on SAFM. We'll be having an in-depth debate on some of the challenges facing the province in the run-up to this crucial election. You can also stream this riveting discussion live on SABC News YouTube channel, or you can listen live on 104 to 107 FM here on Update at Noon.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. SAFM.
Right, 29th of May, don't forget that, right? In that context, the apartheid government was so afraid of Beyers Naudé that for 7 years it banned him from being in a room with more than one other person. But in 1994, he voted in the country's first democratic election and worked hard to help previously disenfranchised people do the same. So on May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's #RememberMe initiative encourages South Africans to honor Naudé's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. #RememberMe.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy, let's talk finance. It's actually like Friday night tonight. Just trying
Good
to work
evening,
out
Ashraf.
how you're going to plan tonight, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting show we have today. We're taking a look at some of the developments in the mining space. We know that Anglo BHP conversation went on last week. There was a very swift rejection from Anglo. So we're going to have that conversation and see if we can get through that tonight. And then we've also got a conversation on the work changes that are coming for foreign nationals and what employers need to know around that. And PwC also put out a report, an April report, what they expect from an economic outlook perspective for the month of May going forward, as well as what we've seen up to this first quarter of the year. So we're going to speak to PwC, try and unpack that and try and see where the South African economy is at the moment and what our future prospects might look like. And then Tuesdays we have our property feature, and we're taking a look at multi-generational living. For some people, this isn't a very new concept, living with your parents or having your adult children live with you. Not a very new concept for many, but we're seeing it is increasing in trend and in popularity, and that could be owing to interest rates being where they are. It could be the fact that homes are so expensive to purchase. It could be a number of factors. So we're going to dig into that to try and unpack what's driving this new trend and how people can make the most of it if it's something that they want to take advantage of. But before we get to that, the markets have been having quite the unfortunate day, especially the resource counters, and Henko Kreer has been keeping an eye on those markets. He joins me now to do a quick summary of what's been moving the markets. Good afternoon, Henko. Thanks as always for keeping an eye on the markets. The rand couldn't get below 1850. It's now closer to 1880, but resources losing almost 4%.
Yes, Jimmy, and it seemed like such a great day overall, and then right at the end it just turned red, and it was just at the end of the day a torrid and a horrible day, if you want to say that. But hello to you, Jimmy. Hi, Ashraf. Hello to me, and good evening to all the listeners. So it was a red day on the markets, not just locally, but abroad as well. In the US at this stage, the Dow Jones, S&P 500 and the Nasdaq each trading 0.8% down. And then in Europe, the DAX and the CAC 40 each finished 0.7% weaker. But we do see that the FTSE 100 in London gained 0.2% today. But from there, it's downhill, because similarly here by us, the JSE's all-share index lost 0.5% today and finished at a lower level of 76,076 points. Then the industrial index gained a little bit, about 0.4% up. The financial index finished 1% stronger. And yes, like you mentioned, that resources index took quite a beating today, 4.3% down today. And here are some of the reasons as to why that resources index finished so much lower. Goldfields, one of the big ones on our JSE, Goldfields lost 6.7% today. Then Anglo, another big one, 3.7% down. And Glencore finished 1.5% weaker. We do see one of these 10 largest companies on the JSE finishing in the green today, like, for instance, AB InBev, which gained 1.1%. Then other companies like Spar and Old Mutual and Discovery, they had a great day. Spar gained 4.3%. Old Mutual finished 3.5% up. Discovery 3.3% stronger. And followed by Tiger Brands, WBHO and Mr. Price, which each gained 3% at the end of the day. But then back to the bad news. All your resources, your mining companies like Anglo Gold, Sibanye, DRD Gold, Implats, they all finished quite deep into the red. Like Anglo Gold lost 5.6%. Sibanye-Stillwater finished 5% down. DRD Gold lost 4.5%, followed by Implats, Harmony and Kumba. They each lost 4% today. On the commodities market, the price of gold is $2,297 an ounce. Silver is sitting at $26.40. Platinum, $930. And palladium, almost the price of platinum, now trading at $940. And like you know, the price of palladium really falling and coming down these last couple of weeks. The price of Brent crude is $86.20 a barrel. And do remember to stop at the filling station tonight if you want to save yourself a few bucks and fill up your tank before the petrol price increase. Then the exchange rate, you'll pay 18 Rand 79 for a US dollar, 23 Rand 54 for a British pound, 20 Rand and 10 cents for a euro, and 12 Rand and 20 cents for an Australian dollar. Bitcoin also slipping a little bit today, now trading at $61,200, but that's still 1,150,000 rand. Jimmy, that's how the markets performed today.
Thank you so much for that update, Henku. Yes, of course, remember to fill up if you are heading towards the petrol stations this evening or if you're driving past one. Interestingly enough, I'm having a look at the petrol or the oil price, and the oil price is about 1% weaker for the month of April. At the same time, the rand is almost about 0.8% stronger against the dollar. I wonder if we'll finally see a petrol price decrease in the month of May, or if we'll be told that the increasing volatility will continue. But we'll dig into these and other stories just after 6. For now, Ashraf, back to you and the team.
Thanks, Jimmy. So it's Tuesday night, Friday night. You know exactly what I mean. Whether we talk tomorrow, I don't know. But thanks, great chatting to you. Thank you. Right, let's in fact move on to other issues. So we've had lots of comments on a range of issues. We're going to chat to the son of agri-cluster pretty shortly. Okay, Rohan says, Ashraf, I think that there would be less murders if more people had jobs. Obviously not a token amount and not job opportunities. I mean 1 million jobs at least. I think as conditions for many would change due to not only money but dignity, I think the murder rate will drop at the threshold, just an opinion as I don't have the valid data. Well, I think that's what many people are saying, that there's the violence and the root causes of the violence is just absolute desperation, premised on no jobs and poverty, and therefore even these people are ripe for the take to be able to go out and do things that is unimaginable because of the fact that they are so desperate. Let's get a. In fact, there's a voice note that we had that I want to pick up on the conversation we had around e-hailing earlier on from Shesha. Yes.
Ashraf, Nicholas in Cape Town. I just stopped. I was driving. I just pull off just to throw my comment in this regard. This Shesha e-hailing new company. My question is, who owns the company? Does the taxi industry owns the shares, or they are the owners of the company? We need to be clear on that, because currently part of the taxi industry are the ones that are seemingly to attack us. They actually impounding our vehicles when we're operating in the townships.
Well, I mean, it's a good point. My understanding is that the taxi industry, we're talking Gauteng, they have a stake, they have a share in the company. Who actually owns the complete company? Well, I'm rather blind to that. Okay, so but your point is taken. Here's another, and again, the issue of the death penalty just won't go away.
Hello, Ashraf. It's Matlatsi from Pretoria. I'm thinking it doesn't make sense. Why would you want to kill somebody in order to deal with the situation? You don't kill, you remedy a situation. There are many ways to kill a cat. You don't kill people in order to deal with crime. No. That doesn't make sense. It's cowardly. It shows lack of insight and strategy. I mean, there's money. Let's use the money to deal with this situation. Killing people is not going to work. An ATM, they're not going to kill their own. They know that the death penalty won't affect them at all.
I love your phrase, there are many ways to kill a cat. I thought that's just noted, right? And here's another.
Good evening, Mr. Ashraf. This is Agimatiabola. When it comes to death penalties, we all need it. But the way people are lying when it comes to such cases like even rapes and all that, if people are still not to be trusted with whatever they report, I don't need death sentence. I don't need it at all, because a lot of innocent soul will be lost. Good evening. This is Agimatiabola.
Okay, that's that one. In fact, we'll take some calls before we end the show. I can tell you that with certainty that we'll do just that. We do have now Jerome Claassen on hold. We are going to talk to him about agri-cluster, right after this.
Hear that? That's the sound of deliciousness in your kitchen after watching Ready Steady Cook. You don't season the same no more. The way you chop, slay. You do it with so much flair, because you've channeled your Salt Bay. Uyashisa. Turn up the heat. Off the bone with the meat. You're in your kitchen prime. Always dishing on time. Need I serve more? Catch Ready Steady Cook weekdays at 7 p.m. on S3 and channel your inner 5-star chef. Channel a better you with S3.
Be part of the 17th Annual SA Sport Awards under the theme Celebrating 30 Years of Freedom Through Sporting Excellence, with great prizes to be won every week. All you have to do is SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 32020 to vote for your favorite People's Choice Nominee of the Year. SMS is charged at R1.50. Free SMSs do not apply. The nominees are A. Eben Etzebeth, B. Garda Steyn, C. Siamtanda Siya Kolisi, D. Percy Tau, E. Kirsten Neuschafer. SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 32020. Voting line closes at 9 p.m. on the 5th of May 2024. T's and C's apply. For more information, visit dsac.gov.za. Catch the SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 5th of May on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 at 8 p.m. Proudly brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the SA Sport Awards. Hashtag #IsNjazagame. Hashtag SASA 17th edition.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, we spoke about Shesha earlier on, and Nomsa Ndluli, of course, is their spokesperson. But she's still listening to the show, and we asked the questions about who owns it. So she said, and this is important, Shesha is a consortium. The Gauteng Industry Trust and the E-Hailing Services Trust have a major stake in the company. Hopefully you got that right. Okay. And there's more. Someone says, hey, there's no death penalty in Malawi. Point made. Let's get to honouring the late Agri Cluster. My guest is Jerome Cluster. Jerome, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, sir. It is a pleasure to be with you. Good evening to you and your viewers and your listeners.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, firstly, I mean, your late dad has been granted an award as part of the national awards given by the president, and the award that he was given is posthumously one of the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo. Is that right? Right?
No, sir.
No.
He's been awarded the Ikamanga. In gold. And,
okay.
He's been awarded this wonderful award by the president.
Okay, fabulous
for his contribution to ethical journalism.
Well, there's no question about it. I'll tell you what. I first heard your father speak in his own casual way, hands in his pockets from the podium, and I was a lightie, and he impressed on the ability to give a serious message, but being very, very casual about it, but spoke about nation building, right? And he was the editor of Sowetan, I think, at that time, and it has stuck with me forever. So I think it's, even posthumously, it is such an honor to reflect on his own career. And so perhaps let's talk about that. I mean, many may be familiar with the name Agri Cluster, but again, many younger people may not be familiar. Tell me about, about him and his legacy in the space of journalism.
Sure. Maybe I'll just give you a brief background as well. Being Agri Cluster's son growing up, one has always felt that you had this shadow, and this huge shadow that was cast. And because he had achieved so much in journalism, of course, yes, but he was also an intellectual. He was a critical thinker. He was a brilliant writer. And he was also a community builder. And so growing up with that, one didn't really understand what nation building meant. I knew Dad was famous. You could see him on the paper. You would see him in the news sometimes. You would see him in some of the nation-building events, but I didn't understand what that meant. And fortunately, because he was a writer, one is able to read his articles and his columns. But it took me some time, to get over myself, because nation-building is not just about an individual. And my dad knew that as well. It's about how we can impact our society, all of us. And it was a difficult journey in the beginning because I had to understand my father, who he was outside of him just being my dad. I had to understand who he was as a writer, as a journalist, and all these other wonderful things that he was. And so our journey was littered with many, many interviews of people that knew him closely and people who also admired him from afar. But the most important thing was to read his work and understanding what he said in his own words about nation building. And that meant I had to read his articles and columns from the 1960s. So can you imagine a naive young man who was running from Dad's legacy is now facing this daunting task of reading about 4 decades of his writings. And as I delved into it, traces of him in these different dimensions then began to start slowly revealing themselves. And it was as if my father was brought back to life, because sometimes when you read these articles and columns, it was as if you could hear him, speaking to me, guiding me. And it was fantastic because he then became my teacher about the history of South Africa, literary works that he mentioned, global history that he spoke about and referred to, which was fantastic. And of course, him being a journalist, his life was intertwined with the history of South Africa. I mean, he covered the treason trial sentencing. He worked at Drum magazine for some time. And of course, again, when Steve Biko passed on in 1977, he was amongst those who were arrested on Media Freedom Day. So that also meant we needed to reflect on all of that work that he had done in journalism and see how we could make an impact to contemporary South Africa, why that matters now. And so each year we have the AgriCluster Annual Colloquium that celebrates not just Media Freedom Day, but that wonderful stand that those courageous journalists, black consciousness leaders, and editors took on that stand, on that day against the apartheid regime.
And therefore, I mean, in terms of this order, the order of Ikhamanga that you speak about, right? What does it mean to your family?
We're delighted. We are delighted. It's been 20 years since AgriCluster passed away. He died on the 19th of June, 2004. And I must also just mention that's the same day, 19th of June, that Saul Blakey died. Yeah. Another very famous icon and journalist, politician, just all-around amazing human being who is from Kimberley like my dad. So this is an important award that after 20 years of my dad's passing, we can look back and reflect not only on what freedom is, as we also look at 30 years since we've had freedom, but we can also reflect on when he started speaking about nation building in 1988, South Africa was in a state of crisis. If you look around today, we're once again in a state of crisis. What are the lessons that we can take from the nation-building concept that will help us address the issues that we're facing today? And that's why we're so excited about this, because it allows us to revisit AgriCluster's nation-building concept.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier on, even me as a light, it impressed on me because he spoke about nation-building, and I was nowhere near the journalism space at that time. But I've never forgotten it, okay? I mean, what would... Is there one thing... We're going to wrap up now. Is there one thing that you'd share in terms of his philosophy on being... Not nation building, but being a nation builder that you think is so absent today that we need to all embrace?
Well, our flagship program is reviving basically the Community Builder of the Year awards. They look at ordinary South Africans that are implementing extraordinary projects in their community. So these are people who just don't even have the money, don't get the recognition, but are going out of their way to make sure that their environment is better, their lives and the lives of those people around them is better. And we're very, very keen on making sure that we can get support for the Community Builder of the Year awards and relaunching it, because it speaks about us ordinary people making an impact in our community. Wow. And that is what nation building is. It simply is about caring.
I want to be a nation builder, so if I can help you amplify what you're doing, then we're going to certainly do that. Absolutely. Great man.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Great man, your dad. AgriCluster's... the son of AgriCluster, in this case, Jerome Cluster, who's the founder of the AgriCluster Trust. AgriCluster, this great journalist, did many things, but the Sowetan is what stands out for me, but now a recipient of the Order of Ikhamanga posthumously. That's where we're going to leave it with interviews, but there's time for a few calls I can take. If you can get on, be short and sharp, and we can take it very quickly before we wrap up. So I think we've got Inkosinati first up. I want to just double check if I get a thumbs up. Can I go to Inkosinati? Yeah. Inkosinati, you there? No, not quite there. Okay, there's a couple voice notes that I can pick out on. Let's see if I can. In fact, I think there's one voice note that we want to play. about the petrol price going up. Let's see.
Good afternoon, Uncle Ashraf. Good afternoon to the team and the loyal listeners across the country. South Africa, since independent, has never experienced or practiced death penalty. So it will be ideal for us to probably implement it to see if the level of crime in the country can reduce. Lastly, all motorists should be aware that effective tonight, the petrol price is going up whilst diesel is dropping down. So it's better to fill up if you're a petrol user. It's Bramoro in Bloemfontein.
Okay, and maybe there's another that I can play. No, we don't have that one. Let's get to the last caller we can take in Kosinati. You're going to have to make it quick. We're literally on time to say goodbye. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Right, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm Kostad Mambo here from Kanda. Yeah, no, I do agree with Zungula. But my main concern is to our judicial system. We are still not equal before the law. Now, what is going to happen? Only it's going to go back to the same position that we have been in before. But as long as our judicial system is we are equal and is balanced, then it should come back. That what we call yeah, but that's what I do agree, but not now.
All right. Okay, we're going to leave it at that because that's the end of today's show, The National Pulse. As always, we speak about issues and topics that resonates with the National Pulse and then your pulse as well. And yes, as always, sometimes we can't take certain calls, we can't play certain voice notes. If we've missed yours, I must tell you, as part of a production team, I'm so sorry. Time is always a huge issue in the show. Tomorrow, of course, is Workers' Day, and I spoke at the outset about understanding, besides getting a job, pay attention to what is your purpose. When you find and discover your purpose and play that purpose out through your entire life, you will find that your jobs will be aligned to your purpose, and you'll be far better, far greater, and far more successful at that than simply getting a job and wishing for the best. So I'll see you tomorrow. Right now, it's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Ramaphosa speaks on media freedom and government dismisses fake COVID reports. Good evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa has emphasised the need to respect media freedom in South Africa while he was presenting the posthumous National Order of Ikimanga to the late Agri cluster. He was at one time the editor of the Sowetan newspaper. The Order of Ikimanga is awarded to South African citizens who excelled in the fields of arts, culture and journalism, among others. Cluster has been celebrated for exposing the cruelties of apartheid. Jerome Cluster received the award on behalf of his father.
He was a wonderful journalist and a journalist who was ethical and a wonderful writer, but he was also someone who fought for a concept called nation building. You know, at a time when South Africa was in a serious state of crisis, we once again found ourselves in difficult